That's how it's gonna be, a little test tube.
It's most likely to be a highly infectious virus.
Guy steps out of Times Square station, smashes it on the sidewalk.
Welcome to the Zero Note Review, a show dedicated to handcrafted studies of genre fiction. I'm author DC McNeil, and this week Patrick is still on leave. I'm once again joined by Darth, a slightly compromised community leader who no one's ever really questioned about all the shady shit they did in their past.
Hello there.
And, of course, Danielle from Level Story, a mercenary who set up base in an aquarium, ?
I wanted to make a funny joke about fish, but nothing's coming to my brain, so hi. Hello.
And, of course, Alex, a military leader concerned his best soldier is nowhere to be seen on D-Day.
Yeah, I got nothing. That one's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. He's
What's up?
crazy with that one. Welcome back to our continued study of the post-apocalypse, brought to you by the Zero Indent Patreon subscribers who help make the shows and articles that shape Zero Indent. We are back to talk about episodes 6 and 7, the last two episodes of The Last of Us Season 2. Boy, am I ready to be done talking about this TV show, because, let me tell you, this was a tough one for me to get through. It turns out that maybe the critics were right about this season of TV. I didn't want to believe it coming back to it because I had sort of fond memories of my first watch through. Before I kind of spill the beans on where I'm at, what's the general feeling of these two episodes? I think in particular I'm interested because Darth has been, I would say, the most generous so far, and fairly positive. And for me, these two episodes represent a real turning point of all of the checks that this season have written. They failed to cash them in pretty meaningful ways that I think both fail the previous season, and I think also reveal some of the production choices and their limitations. In particular, I think the casting of this season runs pretty headlong into some problems. Pedro Pascal and I think to a larger extent Bella Ramsey in this season forced them to make some changes because of that casting that we've touched on that we'll get into in some pretty big ways. But Darth, where's your head at with these two episodes and perhaps the season as a whole?
I was very much into it. So now that I'm thinking back on it, there's a lot that I have issues with that. Like, I didn't like that Ellie did this. I didn't like that Joel did this. But, like, it's all about how they are reacting to things. And I'm like, that's not the responsible, adult, rational way that you should have reacted. And I don't know if I should be judging the show by being, like, too realistic. I don't know if that makes sense. Because it's like everything that they did, their reactions were human. The conversations made sense. It's not like anything was unrealistic, but I also didn't like it. So I don't know if there's a conversation to be had there about what you have the characters do as you're moving them along their arcs, and whether or not that, even if it's realistic, does that do anything for the audience? Because, like, maybe the whole scene plays out totally fine and everything tracks logically and the dialogue is fine and all that, and then the audience just is like, so what was the, like, we didn't connect with anything there. And like, looking back, I kind of feel like that's where I am with at least episode 6. 7 got into a lot more like action stuff, so I had less problem with kind of like the specific, I guess the specific emotional reactions that were leading to those problems that I had in episode 6. But then there were still things that they did with episode 7 that I'm like, oh, I wish you hadn't done that. Like, I think you wouldn't have done this and this and this if you hadn't been planning for a season 3, and I'd hate that you leave like holes in the story here, planning to fill them later, because that just feels like lazy writing, even though it might not be. But anyway, those are my jumbled overall thoughts.
No, that a salient point that you bring up is that I think that sense of what's real, and the sense of the suspense of disbelief, and where those feelings come from, I think, is that this season fails to present a perspective on any of the things that are happening, right? It seems to refuse to be from Ellie's perspective. Season 1 is fundamentally from Joel's perspective, largely the entire time until you have that cut to when Joel is laid up, and you have that episode that's solely through Ellie's perspective, and then we go right back to being through Joel's perspective. This season doesn't have a perspective that it sticks to. We follow Ellie and Dina, but there's a real lack of picking a side here that I think actively harms the show's ability to suspend disbelief, because it has to keep constantly stopping and being like, yo, did you follow what just happened? Let me explain that. Oh, what just happened? Let me tell you why that character felt that way. It's this sort of, it's at a constant remove from the characters, because it never lets you be in their perspective for too long. And this constant additional material where it's like, why are we seeing this from this character's perspective right now? Like, it's more important for us to be immersed in this other character's perspective. And it's to what Darth just said, which is they're just setting stuff up. And it feels like setup instead of feeling like it makes sense to be there. And I'm not even talking about the game, you know.
We talked about it in prior episodes, right? Where it's like they feel this compulsion to like tell you what's happening and not just let it sit with you and show you. It's that whole show don't tell type dealio. It bothered me.
Yeah, I suppose we'll get into it. I think the biggest, I want to put a pin on the board for this as an idea, which is the story that they are adapting is extremely divisive, and it only works as a divisive story if you absolutely go for it. Like, that you can't, this is a story where you have to swing for the home run. You can't be trying to get on base. You can't be going for a bunt. Like, you have to do the whole thing. Otherwise, you've got nothing, right? Like, this, if you don't do it, then you've achieved, then these constituent parts are nothing if you don't take them as far as they can possibly go to produce that complete effect. And they just don't do that. Like, fundamentally, they just don't do that. We talked about it last time, but I think it gets increasingly compromised here and increasingly freighted here, which is they pull back on everything just enough that nothing ever feels real. Anyway, Alex, yeah, what's your kind of high level? If you wanted to add anything here at the
I was just having a look at my notes. I thought it was technically really solid. Bella Ramsey was, great, being angry and unflinching as usual. I did. What else did I write down? Sort of coming back to what we were saying earlier. This whole like keep doubling down on the violence to try and use that as like shorthand for meaning was like kind of really frustrating. Like the bleak repetition of it all. It's just sort of the same thing over and over again. I loved the cinematography though in that last episode, like the damp, cold decay and the textures, and it was shot really well. Looked great on an OLED TV too.
I was going to say, it would have looked great on your TV.
Yeah, and I guess all that's to sum up is I just wish they would trust the silence and ambiguity a bit more and let the story tell itself rather than hammering it home into your head every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's
like
probably...
it didn't earn the brutality, I think.
Yes. We will try and get into why that is. Danielle, what about you? Where's your head at with this? Because I feel like I was thinking about this a couple nights ago when I was doing my rewatch and taking my notes, and I was like, you had said in the first episode that when you first started watching the show, you were like, this isn't worth my time. Like, I'm gonna say no to talking about this. And I was like, fuck, I should have said no to talking about this. Where do you find yourself now at the end of this here journey?
Well, I'm definitely not as angry as I was when I first started watching it. In general, I have enjoyed my time watching season 2. I think for me, I I feel like anything I'll say is like largely what all three of you have already said. Like it just felt safe in its execution, and some scenes, which I won't mention here because we'll get into it, but some scenes are genuinely confusing to me, specifically with some changes that they made from the game where they sort of lumped scenes together. And I like usually when I watch TV, I'm not sitting there like talking to myself going, why did they just do that or anything? You know, I'm not that flabbergasted. But this is one of the first or few times where I was sitting at my TV and I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Is that what you're doing? That's what you're choosing to do.
Can I guess? Is it the combination of the porch scene and the "You Promised" line?
Yes. Yes.
I've never been more logically confused. It's so hard to articulate. I'm sure we'll get into it trying to pack it, but like I'm sitting there being like, but what just but what do you mean?
Well, also, and again, without going too much into detail here, because we'll get to it, but just building off of that, it feels like this show is afraid of letting us sit with our feelings. Like, letting things happen and letting us sit with it for just a little bit. Everything's just so fast. And, you know, sometimes that's okay. Sometimes you have a fast-paced show. I wouldn't call The Last of Us a fast-paced show, though. Like, give us some time. But also...
Didn't season 1 do that? Like, wasn't it slower and they, like, let you sit in the moment a lot more?
Probably.
I might be misremembering.
You probably are. I haven't rewatched season 1, but I think they did. They probably did.
Part of it is, like, structural. Like, season 1 is a series of vignettes that string together into, like, a larger road trip story. This season is, like, 3 episodes of setup, 2 episodes of violence, a flashback episode, and then a cap on the end of it. Like, I think it feels quick because it's structured really poorly, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I also want to bring this up just because it's fresh on my mind, and I don't necessarily want to assign it to The Last of Us season 2, but perhaps it could be a product of this. But I saw a video, and I forget who the actor's name, but if I find it, I'll make sure to post it in our Discord chat, with an actor talking about when screenwriters are writing their scripts, they have to have a second pass at the script because they want to write it in such a way where people can understand it when they're looking at their phones.
Oh, I remember seeing that one too.
Have you seen? I just saw it like a day or two ago.
Yeah.
I don't have my phone with me. I must have left it in the other room. So like, I'll have to find it.
Yeah, I'm having deja vu. Yeah.
But I couldn't help but think of that as we were talking. And again, I don't want to assign that to this, but part of it does feel like that. But that's like a larger conversation. But I wanted to at least throw it out there.
Yeah. I mean, I knew that we were all in trouble in 2019 when Netflix started talking about second screen viewing, where they were developing TV shows that was that you're supposed to just have on in the background. As an illustrative example, and this is the most like David's on his high horse bullshit, but I think this is like a valuable thing to say, so I'm going to do it anyway. Let me know in the comments how pretentious this sounds, but we were I think it was like the second or third viewing session after I got back from the UK when me and Lucy were watching the season, and it was a Friday night. We got to like 9 p.m. and she was like wow, I'm really relaxed. Like I feel like I've completely was super in the story, completely decompressed. And I was like, yeah, it's because like you sat down and you actively watched like TV, like you did one thing. Because the way that people like Lucy, I think it's like a pretty normal thing to do. She runs her own business, right? She's a busy person. She's got a kid, all that stuff, right? Is when she's watching TV, she's usually working or doing email or doing, making dinner or whatever. And so I think for her, it was the first time, maybe ever, that she'd sat down and just the lights in the apartment are off, the TV's on, you're actively watching the TV. And it was so funny afterwards because she's had a rule for a long time, which is like no TV in this house, right? She doesn't want to have a TV in her house. It was the first time ever where she gone, oh, I think I get it now. Like I think I understand the appeal of this as like an actual active pastime, and a growing divide that I think we are seeing. Maybe divide's the wrong word, but a kind of factionalization within viewership, production, and artistry in the screenwriting TV industry is people who want to make television and people who want to make stuff that's on the TV. And, in the same way that we're seeing increasing factionalism within technology companies and technology communities, where it's like some people can tolerate the use of AI in minimal ways, and some people absolutely, refuse it and will detonate communities if they find out that has been injected into certain practices without their consent or without their knowledge. I think increasingly what's going to happen over the next couple of years is we're going to see that second screen viewing focus be increasingly infected by the proliferation of these generative tools, because it's an easier way for these companies to lazily make more and more what we would call content as opposed to art. And this certainly isn't the nadir of that by any means. Like, this is still a bunch of people who care about a show making a show. But it has all of the telltale symptoms of they got halfway through writing the script of this season of television and they panicked and went, ooh, I don't know if we believe in this thing anymore. That's kind of the vibe I get. And the decision to have this episode here, this episode 6, which we'll hear the summary of in a second, I think is emblematic of that. Where instead of having these flashbacks peppered throughout the season that both break up the pacing and give us a welcome respite, and produce an ongoing sense of like the way that I often talk about character development and like understanding a character's motivation is, it's a bit like if you've ever been on a cruise ship and you try and look out the port windows as you sort of leave shore. You can never quite see a full picture, but it's the tantalizing possibility that you'll see the full picture is what keeps you continuing to look. And that's what, really, really good character writing does, is you're constantly almost feeling like you have a full picture, but you never quite do. This episode is like, don't worry, guys. I'm going to explain to you in detail this entire character's modus operandum, everything that motivates them, all of the complexities of their relationship, and then we're going to resolve it at the end. So don't worry. It's fine. This character's fine. It's fine. We're all fine. It's like, yeah, it's pretty bad.
And don't forget Joel's still in the show.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
He's still here.
He's still here.
They have a thing, and I have been noticing this, but I just thought it was part of the intro, and I wasn't picking up on it. But at the end of the intro, they've always had like a animation of like the silhouette of Ellie, and then in episode 6, they had Joel standing next to her, which I thought was an interesting touch.
Yeah, so season 1, it's always the two of. So it starts with 1 because it's just Joel, and you get the little shorter one, which is Ellie.
Okay.
And then it's the episode after Joel dies. It's just the one. Because when that happened in the opening credits, me and Lucy went, ugh, rude.
I never picked up on it just because I usually skip the intro and I might be looking the other way, but I had noticed that Ellie was there, and then I was like, oh, okay, that's a nice touch. Sure.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. That's enough pretext, I think. We are first talking about episode 6, The Price, directed by Neil Druckmann, and written by, and you wouldn't have guessed it, folks, Neil Druckmann, Haley Gross, and Craig Mazin. I cannot believe they got Haley Gross back for this. Why did she say yes, Danielle?
There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that I would love to be a fly on the wall for. I don't know. It's odd. It feels even more odd watching the episode, but
you know what it was? I would, if I had to like throw a dart in a darkened room and hit a target, I reckon that, because Druckmann said before, like, he felt really uncomfortable writing the Ellie Dina romance stuff, which is whatever. You could be conscious of your own bias and be like, I don't think I'd write like a queer relationship well. I reckon what it was is that she wrote the one flashback where it's like, Joel catches Ellie with the girl. I reckon that's what it was. I reckon he was like, Hallie, listen, there's a scene with gay characters. Please come write it for me.
Please, pretty please.
Please. Anyway, Danielle, when you're ready, can we please hear the summary for episode 6, The Price?
All right. In a trio of flashbacks, we experience Ellie and Joel's relationship deteriorate. For Ellie's 15th birthday, Joel gives her a guitar. Joel takes Ellie to the Wyoming Museum of Science and History for her 16th birthday. On Ellie's 19th birthday, she and Joel rescue Eugene, but Eugene is bitten. Joel promises Eugene he'll reunite Eugene with his wife, Gail. Joel of Mice and Men's Eugene instead, executing him. Joel lies to Gail, and Ellie immediately tells Gail the truth, and Ellie realizes Joel lied about the fireflies. The night after New Year's Eve, Ellie speaks to Joel on the porch. Joel does his best to explain the truth and said he does not regret his actions. Ellie promises she'll try to forgive him.
Yep, it's just a series. And also in there, which I didn't include in the summary, we get what I think might be the greatest, like, I don't want to say like the greatest sin of this TV show. That sounds dramatic. Also, I mean, I know that my job is to say the dramatic stuff, but like the flashback with Joel as a kid, when that started happening, I've never been more revolted by an incredible scene of TV than I am by that scene of television. Because here's the thing. It's a really good little, like, it's a really well acted vignette. I think, like, on paper, it's a really clever idea. But it's an idea that exists to set up one line of dialogue that is paid off in the same episode. I genuinely cannot tell if it feels to me that this episode is like a composite of material that was supposed to be elsewhere in the story. There's just no other way to like explain why they would do it that way so directly. To be like at the start of the episode, like it's not Better Call Saul. Like they're not doing, set up and payoff in the same episode in that way. Like it's a, serialized TV show. But to have the audacity to explain why Joel is a bad dad, but he's not that bad of a bad dad is crazy to me. And I've been trying to think.
It doesn't actually, like, the line that you were talking about was like him being a little bit better than his father was, correct?
Correct.
But in that flashback also was like the whole thing about breaking the cycle of violence. I don't remember who the fight was between, and the dad was like, you gotta forgive him or whatever, and you gotta break the cycle of violence. And I'm like, great, they're gonna tie that in to the whole thing about breaking the cycle of violence in this show, because that's what this like whole season's been about, and they don't freaking tie it in at all. And that's what makes it pointless. Like if they had somehow like put this before, and then she doesn't go after I don't know, like there's a way to make this flashback work if they had put it somewhere else and actually have made it affect, like have Joel's memory be told to Ellie, which affects her action against Abby or something like that. Then it's got a point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, and to that point, like there's times in, I think it's in episode 7 where you see Ellie questioning her decisions to enact this violence a little bit more so than she does in the games. And had this been a story that maybe she was told, maybe she could have.
Like Tommy might have used this to try and convince her to give up the hunt type of thing.
Yeah, just like to flash back to it, like, and she thinks about it, like, or I don't know, just something, because that I agree that would have been, I think that would have been really smart.
It's a great idea. Like the thing I'm struggling with is that I'm obviously very critical of Joel as a character because the story is very critical of Joel as a character and his particular performance of masculinity. And we've been picking around this sort of the last 2 discussions, and I want to try and like zero in on dent on the particular.
I was about to say it.
Yeah, I felt it in my bones when I said it. I was like, oh, that's not a gag I'm doing ever again. So let me try and like paint this in some context so it doesn't just sound like I'm like men are bad. So one of the fundamental building blocks of Joel's character, yeah, but men might also be bad. It can be two things at once. Joel's fundamental flaw is this inability to be honest and vulnerable. And it is ultimately the thing that detonates his relationship with Ellie, insofar as he still has a relationship because of, you know, that end of season one. And this story proposes that Joel, or this episode, proposes that Joel, despite his many flaws and shortcomings, still tries to love and tries to protect, and given time is able to eschew some parts of the toxic aspects of his masculinity, right? When we meet him in season 2, he's in therapy, you know, albeit kind of cursed therapy. When he dies, he kind of accepts it, you know, because he knows that he's a bad dude. But in shaving off some of the extremities of this character who is just one version of a man, I think we get a far less focused portrait. The Joel in my head that I always rebel against, and the type of man that I never want to be, is the Joel that is like so fully constrained to one version of what it means to be a man that when he meets Ellie, he is elementally forced to contend with how unhelpful that version of himself is in the face of this character who just doesn't give a shit about this performance that he has, or this masculinity that he has. And, you know, and I think by putting these montages together, you get what I would describe as like this, they're providing a schema of this relationship, which if you kind of step back and you ignore the hospital murder stuff, this schema they present is a largely healthy, almost kind of normal dynamic for like a teenage girl and a single dad, despite the end of the world and everything else. And it produces this artifact, which is that the only thing between them is the secret, right? That this thing that he's done. Instead of what I think is the more compelling version of this, which is the thing that's between them is that like he cannot like let her in properly. Like he cannot be an actual father. And the secret is just a symptom of that. Instead, the secret becomes the be-all and end-all of this relationship, and it's the turnkey that needs to be solved at the end of the episode. And so while I think it makes a more logical way to follow this character, like he behaves more logically, right? I just think like it ends up being an explain to camera of why Ellie is conflicted about Joel, instead of giving us these breadcrumbs across the season where we try and contend with and consider how Ellie views this relationship. Instead, we're just told how she views this relationship. And to me, it is the nadir of HBO prestige TV, right? They have tipped an ungodly amount of money into this TV show. Like that last episode, the production alone, it boggles the mind to think about how expensive that was. And it just feels like as the season's gone on, they just don't trust the thing that they're making. And the kind of radical efficiency of season 1's character writing that everyone praised is replaced by this complete refusal to let anything lie and to just continually revisit these motivations over and over, on top of everything we talked about of like blunting the violence and stepping back from some of that violence and making it more excusable or accidental or incidental. And we'll get into why that is, but yeah, I just think fundamentally the show fails to produce a commentary or a critique or a thoughtful anything about Joel as a character here, because he's just kind of fundamentally a good guy, and has done some bad stuff, you know?
You know, you're making me think of something. So there was a scene in season 1, which is a very good scene, but I dislike it, and it's the scene with Joel talking to Tommy, and he basically lays out his feelings about Ellie and in comparison to Sarah. And the reason I dislike the scene is because it's basically telling us the end of the show, like the arc, before we've even gotten there. And that frustrated me. And in the same way, I feel like the Eugene stuff is doing the same thing, where it's just like adding to it, or like except worse, because I think the scene with Joel in season 1, again, I don't think it's a bad scene. It is very good. The Eugene stuff is a lot, and we'll get more into that. But I feel like the Eugene stuff is just piling on more. We didn't need more. Like, that's the whole plot of season 2. Like, you don't need to tell us what we already know. Like, you could build on the story and build on characters a little more, like, versus, I guess, telling us things again. And that's not fully baked, because I literally just thought of that, but, you know.
Well, I think it speaks to, like, a constant need to explain oneself, like, as a piece of art. I think in season 1, the flashback to Ellie's mother being bitten while she's pregnant, and the sort of when we were talking about that during our coverage of that season, one of the comments that I think Sam had made was, like, the issue is not that they explain where Ellie comes from. The issue is that, from a genre perspective, like, the science fiction doesn't need that explanation, because it implies that you could reproduce this thing in a way that's just, like, deeply unhelpful to the story. And I think that there's so between last episode and this one, I read a post-apocalypse book, The Girl with All the Gifts, which is a similar zombie story, because I don't have the name in front of me from the Patreon, but it was someone DM'd me and was like, hey, you should read this book. I think you'll really enjoy it. And The Girl with All the Gifts is Mark Harry, and it's a similar concept to the fact where it's, like, to the point where it's even cordyceps, like, it's very playing in similar space. And one thing they do that I found really interesting by comparison is they, to Darth's point last episode about, like, some of the struggles this show has with, like, evolving how they explain certain things. That book, by comparison, goes, okay, this is how zombies work. This is our understanding of how zombies work. It's evolving because it's, like, a living organism, and it's, like, a central plot point to the story. Is, like, how is this thing evolving, and what does that evolution mean? And then it starts to get into, like, some real, like, what I would almost describe as, like, cyberpunk type stuff, which is, like, questions of, like, what is a person? What is personhood? Like, you start to get zombies that, because it's a parasite, like, it animates some people, and, like, they can think, and it's like, well, if they're thinking and talking, but they're dead and infected with this thing, well, aren't they people too? It starts to get into those questions. But in doing so, avoids explaining how the plague started. Like, it never addresses how the infection started. And I think where I struggle with a lot of this show's instincts is everything has to have a single point of origin that you can trace a direct line to where we end up. And when I say direct line, I mean, like, this episode is, like, literally it's a straight line from that Joel flashback at the start to the ending of the episode, and indeed to the way that the next episode resolves, because it's framed as an accident. So yeah, I guess we'll go to the first flashback, unless you guys have anything more to say about that little Joel and Tommy with his dad moment.
Great casting, I will say that.
So good.
Yeah, once again, it seems like everything except for the actual story and screenwriting is really, really good. I don't know.
Yeah.
I enjoy the cinematography and the set design and the casting and
the acting. Yeah, the moment where his dad, like, he goes to get angry and he, like, catches his anger and it, like, melts into sadness. I was like, oh, yo, like, damn, they really did this, huh? And then the scene finished and I went, they really did that, huh?
And I found that, especially, this is just like a side note, because when I was, like, a middle teenager, one of the biggest things that I couldn't wrap my brain around was that our society has not perfected itself, because every kid, especially going through your teenage years, has thought to themselves, I'm not going to do that to my kid. I see the mistakes and I'm not going to do that. And then you grow up and you should remember those. Like, every generation should be better than you're always learning from your parents' mistakes. We should be passing those down, but we're not. And they kind of address that here. And I started to go, oh, this is going to be cool. And I was like, going back to teenage me. And then I was like, oh no, we never learn. It doesn't really get better.
Yeah, no one give Darth a copy of any Arian Rand book, please. We don't need that
Oh,
energy.
no.
That's funny for people that understood that. But anyway, yes, the joke there is that thought is like one of the like beginning stepping stones into like white supremacy and a whole bunch of other stuff. Anyway.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it's fun stuff.
I spent enough on that topic. We can move on.
I was gonna say we can move on. Go watch any Zack Snyder film and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like what if you just perfected yourself as a male specimen? Wouldn't that be enough? No, dude. We get it. You like lifting weights. Shut up about it. Okay, so the first flashback we get is Ellie's 15th birthday. And some of this is a bit jumbled in my head because I admittedly in my rewatch skimmed through this episode because it makes me frustrated to experience. But is this the one where she's smoking pot and she's like high as shit and she's just like eating the cake with her hands? Is that this scene?
So it's not when she's smoking pot. It's when she burned herself on purpose, and so she has like.
Right.
I don't think she's still under the influence of pain meds, but like maybe it's just she woke up. And
That's what it might be. I think it might be pain
Yeah.
meds, yeah. But I mean high as shit, just not on pot this time. Yeah.
It was wasn't it to like so she can wear short sleeves again or something?
Yeah.
Because she like covers her scar or something.
Yeah, to cover her burn mark. I mean her bite mark.
Although I remember also having the thought that I was like, what if this is just her? Like, I could see, like, she just eats cake that way. Like,
I mean, I feel like it was because she was sleeping. Like she woke up. Like I feel like the pain meds would have worn off. Like I didn't actually. I just thought she was being silly.
Yeah. It's a fun scene. He gives her a guitar, which he made, question mark.
Yeah.
And this is where we get the most bizarre, like, focus. So, the moth has always been a part of The Last of Us, okay? But in, like, the moth has always been a part of The Last of Us in the same way that crates are part of Crash Bandicoot. It's not necessarily relevant that it's a crate. It just has to be something. And, you know, for those who are, unanointed in the games, you know, the loading screens are often like an open window, and there's often like, you know, in the first game in particular, there's like little moths that dance through the dust motes. And you sit there as, you know, in 2012 and you go, wow, the power of the PlayStation 4, or PlayStation 3, whatever it was. You go, wow, look at graphics, man. This is crazy.
Wow.
And then you play that on 60 frames a second, 4K on your PlayStation 5, and you go, wow, graphics, man. And so the moth has always kind of been there, but this sort of, this is going to sound really condescending. I don't mean it that way. This centralizes the moth as like a foundational part of Ellie's personality? Question mark? Because he's got the moth on the guitar. Her tattoo ends up being the moth for some reason. It's very weird.
I do kind of like the symbolism of the moth though, because if you think about them in real life, they're drawn to light even when it can like kill them. So I think that's an interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe that's why they picked it in the original game story. I don't know, but
I don't know if the scene is in the game, but when Joel's talking to the therapist and he asks her about the moth and he says like, doesn't it mean like rebirth and stuff? And she's like, no, that's a butterfly. A moth means death, which makes a lot of sense for Ellie to associate her life. Like I could see her thinking that like she's cursed and she just like her loved ones will die because of her. So I could see the moth being made more and more integral the more that people around her are dying.
I do like that, but it is strange that it's being introduced so late in the season, which I feel like is there's a lot of things introduced in this episode in particular that I'm like, why not do this earlier? Like I'll come back to it. But yeah, the moth is not mentioned, I don't think, at all in the games. Yeah. Not even once. It's literally just, yeah.
Like tattoo, or like, is it just...
The tattoo is mentioned, but it's never mentioned like what the decision like behind it was.
Like, right, it's
geometry.
not like a plot point.
No, it's not supposed to be anything. It's just like vines or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like the point of the moth is not the moth, it's the guitar. It's how you know it's Ellie's guitar.
Right.
It's Chekhov's guitar, right?
It's Chekhov's guitar. Yeah.
Well, that's why it's okay. So that leads me to bring up the other thing, which is Joel performs a song with the guitar. Which, can I just say, this is like a stupid thing to mention, but I am gonna mention it anyway. That the song he's singing, there are people online who like get angry that it's in the game at all, because I forget the artist who sings this song. I should know it.
Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam, thank you. The song came out technically after, what's it called? Oh my god, why am I blanking? Like when the apocalypse started happening.
Yeah. People
the
need
end
to
of the
go
world.
outside more. Come on, guys.
I know, but it is just funny to me, so I just have to bring that up. But the real thing I wanted to bring up is that Ellie, throughout the game, like sings this song. She constantly sings it. She comes back to it because at the very start of the game, Joel sings it to her. It means nothing to us for the most of the show, which is fine, I guess, on a rewatch. But like, why place it here? Why not give it to us a little earlier? Like, it's just so strange because you just think Ellie's humming a tune. It means nothing to you.
Because that flashback of him giving her the guitar is the first interaction we see between Joel and Ellie in the game. Like, it's the first scene you get of them together. So you're thinking about it the whole time, and when she goes to try and sing it when they first get to the theater, and she can't get past the first line, you go, oh, that's why she's choked up, because she's thinking about Joel. Now I like the my headcanon of this, and this is so dumb, but I've had to absorb this as like as internal like cosmic fact to make this work for me. My headcanon is that because it comes out after the end of the world, in fact, in this universe, Joel is the one that writes this song, because it's a pretty bad song, and it's pretty doofy dad rock, like it's really embarrassing to listen to, and I really like that he's like, I'm gonna write this song about how much I love my kid, and it turns out as this like kind of clumsy, awkward like dad ballad, and like I love that for Joel, and like that is like really sort of, if you read it that way, to me it's like really great characterization where it's like, yeah, like he just can't quite get his feelings together, and so it comes out as in these clumsy, awkward ways. And I think that's like really charming. And so I'm choosing to believe that's true, even though it's not.
I mean, I like that, because when I first played the game and I saw that scene, I was like, interesting song. I don't know how I feel about these lyrics, but you know, go at it, Joel. Like, do your dad thing.
That could have been really heartbreaking if they had like, she's always like humming this tune, and then you finally get to the scene where it's a flashback and he's singing the song for her, and it is something he wrote, but it's just like, Ellie, your name is Ellie. I love Ellie.
It's like a Flight of the Conchords song.
Okay though, but honestly, that would have been good. Like, because Ellie,
right?
From my perspective, she only hums the song once, and I think it's like episode 4 or 5, and it's so brief, and like there's no way, unless you're have a really good memory, that you're gonna remember that tune from episode to episode. Again, on a rewatch, you might be like, oh, that's what she was singing, which is cool, but you know,
yeah, it'd have to be like like when she gets nervous, or when she gets scared, or when she's happy, or something, so it's kind of like a consistent thing, so it's repeated enough for the audience to kind of catch on.
I was gonna say before, maybe when she sings Take on Me, like maybe she attempts to sing that song, but then like it just makes her too sad, so then she starts singing Take on Me.
Like a lot of this, there's things that they could have just woven in as just like a connecting thread, rather than just dropping it like a bomb and then moving on.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you could imagine a reality where, you know, when she's doubting herself and this mission, you know, she starts to hum the first couple notes to herself, you know, solemnly or something, and you get that throughout the show, and it builds to this moment of like, oh, that's where this is. You know, there are ways that you can do it that that you maybe wouldn't do in a game for many reasons, that work really well in TV. It just super, there's no way I can make any of this make sense other than this was supposed to be somewhere else in the season. Like, this is the only way I can make this stuff track logically from a screenwriting perspective is this was supposed to be intercut somewhere else. And I'm sure someone will do that cut and put the material in like a more logical order so this stuff is like set up and payoff. Because this just really feels like it should be nestled somewhere in the first 2 episodes.
It is. I did wonder, like, rather than it just being a mishmash, like I'm calling it a montage episode, it could have been like couldn't they have found places interspersed through this season to put these flashbacks in so that it could like contrast with a story moment or like reinforce a story moment rather than just smash and smoosh them all together so it's one episode? I don't know, it seemed odd. They could have done so much with it, I think.
Especially because they're not like adapting these full flashbacks, like they definitely condense them. So if you're going to condense them and get their most important parts, then why not make them a little shorter and intersperse them throughout various episodes?
Or go the opposite way and
Full episodes.
do what you were saying before, where it's like give it a bit of room to breathe, make the flashback a bit more fleshed out,
Yeah.
and then bookend that with an actual and back to the present moment.
Right.
I don't know.
Because a couple of these are just straight up levels in the game, right, Danielle? Like, I'm thinking of the level that ends with the, like, you promised, like, that's a level that you play.
So, yeah, there's 2. There's the one where they go to the museum. That's a level. Yeah. And then the other one, which is not really featured at all in this, is I guess they're on a patrol or something. I forget what the setup is, but they go into an old hotel, I think, and they're trying to get out.
And they find that couple that ran away from Jackson like a couple months ago. Yeah.
Yes, which that's another thing, and I'd have to replay the game to look at all the little notes you read, but I wish they would have incorporated more of like the little stories that are in the game, in this game. They could have used those for some of the world building. I don't know where, but just like...
Oh yeah, that would be cool. Just like little vignettes littered around that are just unrelated but build the world. Is that what you're talking about?
Kind of like... Because, I don't remember exactly what happens in this section of the game, but like, you find a lot of notes that are pointing to, I think, I don't know if David, if you remember, it's like a couple runs away or something.
Yeah, this couple, like, they end up in Jackson and they don't like the way that, like, Tommy and Joel run Jackson, basically. And there's this rumor that they ran away to some other settlement. And Joel is sort of admonishing Ellie for, like, even thinking that they would have survived. And they end up going through this hotel. They kill a bunch of infected. And it paints the story of this couple who had this plan of, like, making a go of it, but they just didn't have... they just didn't have the juice to actually, like, achieve this plan, and they die quite tragically, where one of them gets infected and the other one is unable to kill her, and he's sort of writing this note as he ponders the fact that he's not strong enough to, kill his girlfriend, basically. And it's this, like, small, composed tragedy that is used to build the world and to elicit a reaction from Ellie and Joel, right? The way that they react to this moment shows us a lot about who they are as characters and their dynamic. Where Joel at first is quite he's quite pragmatic about it. And Ellie has to be like, they were fucking people, Joel. Like, they were our people. Like, he's like, oh yeah, but like, you got to learn from this stuff, type of thing. That's kind of how that plays out from memory.
Yeah, I don't know, just having something like that. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Just going back to, like, let's say episode 2, when you have this whole scene of infected invading the town, and just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bit like what we were talking about before with that book that you were reading about, laying the foundation of what the world looks like, and it's, here's how a zombie works. And I think The Walking Dead did this really well early on too, and I was really miffed when they didn't continue to do it with the CDC, where they were, here's how the infection works, or like just having those things interspersed through it just makes it feel like a world rather than just a narrow picture of someone's path to violence. I don't know where that thought was going either,
But I think building off that, at least from my perspective, it feels like there's so much that this season wanted to do for spectacle to like grab audiences instead of what made the first season I think work so well is like reaching the, as cliche as it might sound, like the human aspect of all of this and sort of the raw reaction, showing like those interviews, seeing like what it really would be like versus like this high stakes. And the first season was high stakes in its own way, but just high stakes in a way that's like exciting television. Or not, I don't even want to say that because just something that easily grabs your attention television. There's a word for that I'm blanking on, but yeah.
Be a lead into I had realized that what feels so off about this episode 6 is flashbacks should fulfill like a very specific purpose. Either they're like shedding light on a character's mindset, or it should give you something new that you didn't have before. And most of these don't give us anything new. We get something new. We get like the understanding of why Gale and Joel have like a strained relationship just as therapist and client. We understand that, but is that really important to the story? Eh. And then we get the porch scene, which yes, is important to the story, but the rest of it is just more context of the relationship that Joel and Ellie had, and none of that affects the story after you learn about it. It's just stuff you're supposed to internalize and make you have fond memories of Joel now that he's dead. So what is the point of having them? They should, like one of you said, they should definitely have come way earlier if they're going to be included at all. And the fact that they don't really give us anything makes me wonder if they should have been included at all.
Yeah. Yep. Part of the problem though is then you have a really weirdly paced season of TV. Like, I think that however you cut it, whether you keep these flashbacks or not, you're still short of about an hour and a half of material that needs to be here to make this feel like a harrowing journey through Seattle. So, even assuming that you still take out some of the blood sport aspect of the story and you make these decisions to compromise the violence, it still just kind of feels like they turn up to Seattle, they teleport around a little bit, do these violence, and then go home. Like, the sense of this being like a deeply fraught mission is only really underscored by that action sequence where Dina gets shot in the leg, and then Ellie's journey to try and get to the aquarium. We're missing a lot of intertext there that would show us, hey, Seattle's really hostile. This is actually a war zone, and they go for some of that where it's like, oh, like we shouldn't save the Seraphites because we've got to look after us. They've got a little bit of that, but man, like, yeah, I just think that we needed more of the actual story at play, rather than these flashbacks, which don't really, to your point, Darth, they don't really do anything. Like, they're not used or deployed in any meaningful way. It's just like, hey, we know that you like Joel. Here's some Joel stuff,
Right. You got Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's the Seraphites that feels like it's the missing piece for me, because you had at least a few scenes that were looking at the WLF and their leader and his past, and then they showed the torture scene and we get some of their mentality, but we have almost nothing from like the Seraphites' point of view aside from like a couple minutes before they get ambushed when they're out walking in the woods. So it would almost make sense that if you're going to focus that much on the WLF, then you focus that much on the Seraphites, and I don't know how you tie that in to make it more, because that's got to tie into like Ellie's arc in some way, which probably would be the whole they killed us, so we're killing them, and it's just gonna cycle of violence. And then Ellie would probably be like, you can't do the cycle of violence, and they're like, well, why are you here? I'm going to kill, get revenge. So maybe that would all tie together.
Something that I thought about while watching these episodes, because I know we've talked a lot about just adaptations and how it's difficult to adapt Last of Us Part 2 to any other medium but a video game. And it made me think of a book I read a while back called Where'd You Go, Bernadette, which was adapted into a movie. I don't know if y'all have ever read that or seen the movie. The book is fantastic. I would highly recommend it. And the movie's fine, but the movie, my friends and I watched it, and what was frustrating about it was that like the book kind of jumps back and forth in timelines. Like it kind of starts almost at the end and then does flashbacks and then like brings us back to the end. And then the movie does the same thing and it doesn't work at all. And we kept saying to ourselves, like, what isn't working? Like, oh, maybe it would have worked better if they just told a linear story, because just of the nature of the medium and like how they decided to adapt it. And I don't know like what the solution is here, because I think this is such a hard game to adapt. I don't have an answer of like what they could have necessarily done to make this the strongest they possibly could. But it just feels like so many of the things we're talking about are just a lack of ideas of how to competently adapt this to a different medium. And it almost feels like they took the easiest route, like, oh, let's just put all the flashbacks in an episode. Like it almost feels comical. Like it's I don't know, it's just a strange choice to me. But.
Yeah, I think I think fundamentally the underlying thing that produces a lot of these decisions is that lack of perspective. The fact that these flashbacks aren't interjected when Ellie is thinking about them is like fundamentally like this is going to sound dramatic, but like it's like a fundamental like failure of like the use of this structural device. Because the problem with flashback in a story is that it disrupts it effectively disrupts the logical perspective and continuity of a story, and that can be in meaningful ways, right? If you think about the flashbacks in something like Severance, for example, they are used to give you a character. You start with a character and they move you through that character's perspective into that flashback for like an emotive reason that then can have plot relevance or can have character relevance, right? You think about a show like a film rather, like Dune and Dune Part 2, which always sounds weird in my accent, and people are like, are you saying Doom? Dune. Dune. In Dune, they resist the breaking of the continuity in a way that the books certainly don't, right? The books are riddled with flashbacks and side flashes and skips through time and skips back, stuff like that. But the film, quite rightly, to your point before, Danielle, goes, this will work much better if you just sit with a linear story and it's all about the vibes and the feeling, and you're just completely immersed within the perspective of Paul Atreides. And it works especially well for that payoff at the end of the second film, where you go, oh my god, I can't believe he did that. Whereas in the book, by the time you get there, you're waiting for it to happen because you've got a lot more of his interiority through flashbacks and stuff like that. And I think that this show, when I say it fails to have a perspective, what I mean by that is these flashbacks being grouped together here mean that they're not executed elsewhere, where they would produce a coherent sense of interiority for Ellie and give us the main story through her perspective. Instead, we kind of skip around. Like the first scene we get with Joel is with Dina, and then it's Joel and Tommy, and then we get some Ellie, and then we're back to Joel, and then we're back to Dina, and then we get more Ellie, and like it ends up producing a kind of a difficulty with a story like this that is about revenge and about this single-focused, single-minded blinders that Ellie has on. But the structural mechanism of the show doesn't have those same blinders, and so it doesn't have that same impact and that same drive and that same desperation that you would want from a revenge story. Like a revenge story should feel like every single time a door opens where someone says, okay, you can just exit the building. You don't have to keep doing this. Every single time that happens, the character's got to walk past the door. And like every tragedy, every single time that happens, you're like, maybe this time they'll make the right choice, and they never do. There's never those moments with Ellie because we're not through her perspective. Instead, it's incidental. She happens to be alone and sees a way to the hospital. When she gets to the aquarium, she accidentally kills them. Like, it's just silly. There's a cartoonish. There's something about it that feels disreal.
Well, it just comes back to that whole like it's gotta be the murder, but it can't be that bad. Like they almost sort of like make it an accidental thing because it can't be like she intentionally did it, even though like that was kind of implied. Like it just kind of keeps walking it back. Like it can't just give you that screenwriting. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I guess we'll kind of talk about that murder when we get to it, because I think the tragedy that's played up in the game is very different than the way that they frame it in this story, in a way that I was like, oh, you'll kind of maybe understood why this was tragic, but we'll get there. Look, we could talk. So the next sequence that we get is really the 16th birthday. We could talk about this as its own. This could be its own episode of discussion, because this is, I guess, in some ways the. Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong. This flashback to the 16th birthday, to the launch, this happens after the. This happens like structurally in the same place as it does in the show, if you ignore the other two flashbacks, right? This happens before day 3?
It does. I think it happens. Oh, I'm trying to remember. It might happen before day 2.
So after Nora.
Because before Nora, I think.
Before Nora. Oh, right. You mean at the end of day 1 when they get to the theater.
Oh, did I say? Yeah. And then I think the second flashback might even be like halfway between like day 2 or something. I remember it was faster than I expected it to be. But yeah, it definitely happens much sooner. I just can't place exactly where.
Because this scene, so basically, he takes her to the Natural Museum of Science and History. In the game, this is where they justify that Ellie's learned to swim, which is fun.
Yep.
Which means that you have a swimming mechanic later on. I love when games do stuff like that, where they're like, here's an explanation for why you can do the thing you couldn't do previously. And for those who haven't played the first game, Ellie can't swim, and like a lot of the game is like flooding everywhere. And so you're doing a lot of like little puzzles where you're like, going and finding like a pallet that she can jump on, and you're paddling her across like a body of water, or finding like ways around water and stuff. Like it makes for really fun gameplay, and some really good twists on what you can do with Naughty Dog's sort of house corridor, but it is a really pretty corridor style of gameplay. Takes her to the museum. They go through, and the thing that we learn is that she is obsessed with astronauts and space and stuff like that. And he takes her to the space shuttle, and he's somehow found a recording of I was going to say an Apollo rocket. I don't know what, just like a rocket launch.
Apollo, something.
Yeah, that he plays. And when this happens in the game, it is a huge emotional beat. And if I've said this before, but like when you come, and you were talking about how effective you found this game, Danielle. When I come back to this scene, when I replay this game, it's like bawling my eyes out. Like it's just so effective. And it captures this exact. It's the final moment. This is what I love about it. It's the final moment before their relationship goes wrong. And it's just so shot through with grief, and it's this like freighted thing. It's so amazing. And I think that they achieve a similar kind of performance from these actors. I think that the set design is incredible, but again, its placement structurally means that I kind of don't feel much when I watch it, and I know I should, because these are scenes that I know I'm emotional about, and like it's sad. But yeah, I guess I'm curious for the rest of you. Like, does this flashback do much for you guys?
Yes, but if I like put it in its own context, because like you said, like where it is, I did not appreciate, but I loved everything about it. So I was totally immersed in it and probably at least tearing up, if not like going, "Oh, Joel's dead," and I'm like being all sad. And I think part of the reason that they keep doing these flashbacks is they're giving us they're overwriting the memory of the torture and the death with memories of happy alive Joel, which is what we will carry forward more so than the death, if that makes any sense. So I think that may be one reason that they structured it this way. Um, I think what a good rewrite could have been is to end whichever episode that was two, when he dies, and this is his last memory, and like go in on his hand and he's holding like some little trinket that he picked up at the museum, and he like carries it everywhere with him because this was his like favorite day that he ever had with Ellie. And so like when he dies, we go into his mind and this is what he was thinking of. And so this accomplishes what they were trying to do of leaving us with a happy memory of Joel after he dies, and we get more, of their relationship when they were alive, and it fits much better as a like saying goodbye to the character immediately after his death versus coming back and kind of revisiting the whole thing in this way that none of us appreciate.
Reminds me a little bit of when we watched Sherlock Darth and we got to like that third season and they kill Mary, and then she's just in she's in the next episode as like a hallucination. And I think at the time we talked about you remember that. We talked about one of the problems that some TV shows have, which is when you kill a character, part of what makes it impactful is they're absent from the story, like real life. So when you
like
do
they've
this,
actually died.
like they've actually died. So when you do this stuff where you're constantly putting them on screen after they've died, it can detract from that sense of absence, or it can add to that sense of absence, depending on how you use it. And what you've just pitched, Darth, is certainly additive to that sense of absence. Whereas this just does feel like, I mean, this, obviously this is the high point of their relationship, and then we're going to see how bad it's gotten by the time that she's 19. But yeah, and there's no good place to talk about this. So here is maybe a good place, which is like the transition from this flashback to the next one, which is I think it's really evident here that as much as Bella Ramsey is really, really good in this role, I think that in not recasting her for this season, they backed themselves into a bit of a corner with what they're able to accomplish with the production of this TV show. She just doesn't look old enough for this to really sell the amount of time that's passed. And that, I know that sounds like a stupid
just
thing
for context,
to critique.
how much time had passed?
So the three flashbacks are 15, 16, and then 19. And Joel dies when she's 19. So later that year.
Yeah, and like there's stuff that they could have. I mean, this is not the first time we've seen a kid having to age in some capacity in a show or a movie. Like, I feel like there are things they could have done to fix that, whether that's like practical makeup or just something. But
I think it just forces them to make compromised decisions because they're like, well, we don't want to show this like very childlike looking character doing this type of specific violence. Like I just think it and I think it was in Plunkett's article for, I think it was Aftermath, but it might have been where he basically went like, look, I think like fundamentally the issue here is they, in not recasting, they back themselves into these corners that then have these continual knock-on effects of the type of story they're able to tell. When you're already dealing with a really difficult story to write, it just adds a layer of complexity and difficulty that need not be there. And part of what I mean to try and explain like why I'm saying this is like a problem is when you play as a character like Ellie and she looks the way that she does compared to the first game, it feels like you're playing someone who is like fundamentally grown up, and when you do violence, she feels scary. There's a scene later on where you see it from a different character's perspective, and you're like, holy shit, this person's a fucking murderer, and she's coming to get you. It doesn't so much feel that way. It still sort of feels like that these acts of violence are sort of an exception as opposed to the way that she's been living her life, perhaps, because of the artifact of some of that production.
So to be a contrarian, I don't think that I had, like, when all of these birthday flashbacks are going through, I don't think I ever had an issue with, like, oh, she's not old enough for this one, because I think it was just like, oh, it's another birthday. It's just showing a passage of time. I don't think it wasn't like literally showing, like, the 15 candles on the birthday cake kind of thing, where you're like, it's not focusing on the age enough for me to have clocked it. Like, the only time that I remember ever questioning, is this actress the right age to be playing this character, was always in relation to how they had her acting what I perceived to be too immature for the age that she appeared to be, if that makes any sense. So, but not in relation to the birthdays, which is what y'all were talking about.
I suppose I'm not talking in relation to the birthdays. I'm using them as a bit of a jumping off point to try and capture the totality of that problem as I see it. I think it's a I don't think it impacts the birthdays, but I think it's a useful moment for me to go, okay, and across the length of the show, this is one of the outcomes that this produces.
Would a fix have been backing way up to the last season, was she that actress, was she the right age at the end of that season for this character?
Pretty sure.
So would the correct, or would a better course of action have been for them to have, like, either de-aged or cast a younger version, or deep fake, whatever, the young versions of these first, three birthdays.
Maybe perhaps working backwards with some de-aging techniques would have been a better choice.
And so, because I feel like casting a completely different person for the older Ellie, you'd have to go a lot older, and it doesn't feel like that works.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the fix is, to be honest. I would have cast an older Ellie and then had Bella Ramsey play young Ellie. TV shows have done that before. It's not that out of place for HBO as well. They famously did that in House of Dragon, and that show has its other problems, but that was never an issue that the show really had in any real way. They went, here's a young character, we cast an older version. We can still bring the younger one back for flashbacks and stuff, but fundamentally, like, Millie Alcott aged like she wasn't growing up fast enough, so they're like, cool, we gotta cast someone else in this. Yeah, I guess to kind of move us forward here, we've then got the kind of subsequent flashbacks. I don't really have a lot to say here. The Eugene stuff we've touched on already. Sure, it's added text. I don't mind it that much. It's just a lot to have explained to you directly to camera. Like, it's the most the show has gone, like, okay, so here's Joel's moral code, and then it stops you and it goes, wait, before you walk away, let me explain how this works. And it shows you the operation of that moral code, and then it goes, okay, cool, you got that, Tiger? And you're like, yeah, I got it. And it goes, great. And now here's how Ellie is dealing with it. And you're like, oh, I don't think I needed all of that explained. You could have stopped with, this is Joel's moral code. Joel does the logical thing, and it's fundamentally, like, the wrong thing to do in this moment. To Ellie, right? And that's the important thing. That's the important thing, is this is from Ellie's perspective. To Ellie, this is the wrong thing to do. And much like we might say that a lot of Joel's decisions we find morally wrong, but, like, they might make, like, pragmatic or logical sense. Lucy was telling me that they did this, they did a survey, and they were like, they asked parents versus non-parents if Joel did the right thing at the end of season 1, and you can guess the split in that. But as a parent, you acknowledge, like, yes, I would do anything to, like, protect my kid. That doesn't mean that's a good thing to do. This is a similar type of thing, where it's like, Joel probably does the responsible thing here, but also, what a piece of shit, to then have the audacity to lie to Gale is like, come on, man.
Well, it also...
Is that audacity?
Yeah, do you not think that's audacity? The dude can do whatever the fuck he wants with no consequences. If Ellie's not there, he gets away with this every time.
But that, in my opinion, it was a mercy what he told her versus what actually happened. And that's not him, like, getting away with murder, you know? That was him trying to do the thing that would make her suffer the least.
Oh yeah, because that's going
Right.
really well with Ellie, isn't it? That lie's really working out.
Not talking about Ellie though, just talking
It's
about
the-
him and
It's
Gale.
the same behavior. My point is, it's the same behavior that gets Joel in trouble every time, which is he always thinks he knows better than everyone else. That's my look. I understand what you're saying, but I think it's trying to draw a line between like and go, this is the totality of this guy.
I think that's this whole conversation we're having now is kind of the problem with this scene, is that we're talking about this scene now instead of talking about what Joel actually did, which was at the Firefly Hospital all those years ago. That's why we're here, you know, in the situation we're in. And, you know, we could go back and forth about this, about did Joel do the right thing and what does the right thing actually mean? But then I feel like we're kind of missing the point then, which this scene I feel like does. Just it just makes it a little cloudier.
Yeah, and to Darth's point, I think that it is again just a small piece of rectification of these characters where it's like, yeah, he might have killed Eugene, but it was the right thing to do, right? It's this continual compromise of the extremities of these characters to the point where they kind of stop feeling like characters that make decisions. They kind of feel like, I don't know, there's something about it that you could hermetically seal this entire scene, throw it away, and you'll lose nothing, you know? Like, as opposed to the previous flashback, which I think does do a lot of work to tell us the state that these two were in.
Well, that was the note that I had written down, was trying to figure out why this scene was here, because it felt to me like the whole purpose of this scene didn't start until Joel lied to Gale. And so and then Ellie is like, no, you can't lie. So like it's like the whole thing is about Ellie firmly believing you can't lie to people, which then is now putting the hospital into context that lying about the hospital is the worst thing you could ever possibly do to her. And so if those two things were not connected, then this entire thing with Eugene is irrelevant.
That's really well observed, actually. I hadn't quite put that together. Yeah, that is the salient part of this sequence, is the ending of it. Which sounds like an obvious thing to say, but like I just feel like there's a lot more stuff they could have, like, again, the amount of screen time these flashbacks take up when the story that's happening is in dire need of more airtime to do the things it's doing. This just feels like a unforced error from, like, and again, I don't know who wrote this scene. This episode to me feels like each flashback was written by a different writer, you know, which is fine. Like, I have no problem with that on paper. But in doing that and not then Craig Mazin coming in and going, okay, let me cohere these together, it feels to me that, like, Druckmann and Gross went, okay, we're going to write our scenes, you write your scenes, and, like, stay on your side of the fence type of thing.
And then we'll just do a fusion dance and make it an episode.
We'll make it an episode at the end. And part of this, I feel like, is I would be not that shocked to find out if this was sort of part of the last straw that broke the camel's back on this collaboration with Mazin, where I can imagine this would be really frustrating, because it's like, this, you know, these are the two people that wrote the thing I'm adapting. They're insisting on doing these decisions, just compromising the story I'm trying to tell. And I'm guessing, I don't know Gross from a bar of soap. I know plenty about Druckmann. I'm guessing compromise is not a word that Druckmann is comfortable with when it comes to his writing choices. When it's Joel and Ellie in particular, right? These are his characters. The Eugene scene feels indelibly Druckmann to me. And yeah, it doesn't work for me. The cinematography, again, is absurd. Like, the shot of when Joel of Mice and Men's Eugene, I was like, God damn, Wyoming, fucking hell! Like, thank you for being so cinematic. It's really incredible.
I was like, I'd die there.
Oh.
Beautiful.
Yeah, shoot me in the back of the head. Like, at least we'll get some goddamn sleep. Um,
I do like I do like too that they didn't actually, like, you didn't hear the gunshot, you didn't see anything, because I feel like that's, HBO and, prestige television, their bread and butter. You gotta see the violence, but I like that it shows the birds flying out of the trees to, like, let you know that it happened. I was like, oh, thank God.
yeah.
Like,
I
for
need to
once,
see
like,
that.
we need a break. We need
Yeah.
a break.
Yeah. It's a welcome reprieve.
Real quick before we move off of that, just because I don't know if this is anything, but the focus is on Ellie mandating that the truth is like the most important thing of all, and it feels like that came out of nowhere. And I'm curious if that is like being pulled from the game, or if that is just kind of just coming out of nowhere, or if that's them awkwardly just trying to bring the hospital thing more into focus.
I think the actual thing is that Ellie felt her life would have had meaning, like she would have died at that hospital, and Joel took that from her. And so his lie, it's not necessarily about the lying, it's that he did it and then lied on top of it, that makes it even stranger, this Eugene stuff, because you're right, it does make it feel like it's just about the lying, and that's not really it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be about like the robbing of the agency and the consent of someone else because you think you know better. Like the lying is not so much the point. So yes, it feels like it comes out of nowhere, I guess is the answer to that. Yeah. All right, Danielle, go off. What you got for us?
All right, so obviously we have the whole hotel flashback, but I think that's fine that they cut that part out. But I will say, as a brief aside, because we had talked about the introduction of different infected in this season, and I really thought, because I had only watched, like, I guess the first 2 episodes in our first discussion, so I thought what y'all were talking about was the bloater. Wait, not bloater. What's the new one called, David? I think it's not bloater.
What type of zombie?
It's the
Smarty
bigger
Pants?
one that's introduced in part 2. Shambler.
Shambler.
So I thought you were talking about the Shambler because in part 2 there is a new infected introduced called the Shambler, and it is a slightly larger version of the bloater, but it throws like poisonous balls at you, and like you will die very quickly if you're standing in it. And so that's what I thought you were talking about. And I just want to bring that up briefly because that is like, there's a lot of combat encounters with these enemies and they're pretty awful. And the whole hotel sequence, or I guess that is just bloaters it features. But anyway, I felt the need to bring that up. But the other thing is that we are missing an entire flashback here. Might be the most important flashback. And it is condensed into another scene, but it might be one of the best scenes in video games, in my opinion. And it's just not here.
You want to say more?
So Ellie, I think she's 17 in the flashback. She leaves their home and she goes back to the hospital by herself. And she goes through some stuff, and I guess she finds evidence of what Joel did. She has like a recording from Marlene, I believe. And Joel eventually finds her. I don't know how he knows she went to the hospital, but he finds her. And she confronts him, and she's like, tell me the truth. Like, if you do not tell me right now, like, then I will never speak to you again. But if you tell me, I'll go back with you. And so he tells her the truth. I almost feel like I'm tearing up talking about it. It is a very emotional scene. And
that's the porch scene you just described, though.
It is. But instead of the forgiveness part, she doesn't forgive him. She's like, I'll go back with you, but like we're through. Like, that's it. I will go back with you. And it is
Yeah.
sorry.
It's it's the apex
Yeah.
of these two characters that you have spent so much time with, and it's the apex of it. Like, this kid has to confront her parent in this just absolutely harrowing way, because like he just like it's the only way that she's going to get the truth out of him. And the thing that makes it so hard to sit through is that she knows that if he tells her, she can never, if he tells her the truth, she knows that like that's it. Like, this guy was everything that I thought he might be, and I was right about him the whole time. She wants so badly to be wrong, and the way that performance comes through, in the motion capture and the facial act, like, it's just, yeah, it is one of the best scenes of, like, in a video game, in the same way that in part one, the scene where, she's like, well, everyone leaves me, you don't want me, two of the greatest scenes in video gaming, period, and in media in general. And the crucial thing there, I think, is that happens. I mean, how old would you say she is there, Danielle, roughly, in the game? Like, maybe like 15, 16?
It's either 16 or 17. I'm pretty sure 17, because I think it's the year before the game starts. But
yeah, because the idea is that that's the moment where she then moves out of the house and moves into the garage and stops speaking to him, and that's the divide that hangs heavy between them. And it's that scene is the payoff for all of the other flashbacks that are peppered throughout the story of, like, this is the big thing that's between them. And the porch scene. So this is the thing that I've never been more confused by anything in my entire life. So the porch scene, Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong here, we get that at the end of the game. That's like the last thing we see.
it is quite literally at the end of the game. Like, yeah, actually, yeah, it's the last scene before we get like a final shot. And because this whole game we're playing thinking that Ellie didn't get a chance to mend things with Joel. Like, and so you're sort of wondering, it's this weird, interesting dichotomy. And what I love about the game is that all at once, like, she can feel this feeling like of so much love for him that she wants to go out and like avenge him and like and get revenge for his death. But at the same time, like, they were not in a good place together when he died, And so you finally get this scene where it's like, oh, they did actually talk. And she says, like, this scene is pretty close to what is in the game, where she says, like, I would like to try to forgive you. But it's, I'm going to cry again, but just like the emotional, like the weight of that at the end of this game after everything that has happened is so gratifying. Like, to hear that they at least started to mend things, and the weight of that is just removed putting it here. I saw it and I was like, why? Like, why are you doing this now? Like, any buildup that you had, you just took it away. Like,
yeah. And
I don't know.
to combine it with the you swore scene is bizarre.
And again, you can't sit with anything. Let Ellie be angry. But she's not. She immediately goes from being angry to, but I'll try to forgive you.
Yeah.
And like, I am
like, she can't just
mad
be angry
about it.
for a bit. Like,
Yeah.
like a normal
Just be
person.
mad. Right, like, exactly. Like, we don't need that catharsis yet. Like, that can come later. Like, that's
Yeah,
okay.
we've all been mad before. Like, we know how
Right.
this works. Like,
Well,
that's
that
weird.
was the last scene with Joel, was it not? I don't remember if he had any other. I don't think he had any flashbacks in the next episode. So, going by what we said before, they wanted to leave us with a semi-happy memory of Joel, so she can't go away angry at him. Not saying I agree with that, but I think that's what
Yeah.
they were going with.
Perhaps.
I just find it so uncomplicated by comparison. Like, I don't know, you were aligning it really well, Danielle, that like you spend the whole game being like, is she doing this because she loved him, or because like there's some part of her that's like twisted up inside about the decisions that he's made, where like part of this bloodlust is also that she's just really angry. She has been for like a really long time. And this is a partly an excuse to let that out, and to finally have, Joel has crafted her into this this killing machine, right? She's made herself into a weapon. She finally has a target to point herself at. She just lets herself completely become lost in this quest to complete her revenge. And it is that moment after she kills Nora where she has to confront like what she's become and reflects on what Joel has made her into and the decisions that like it's all freighted and complicated and like shot through, and ultimately, yeah, as you say, Danielle, you get that catharsis at the end, especially knowing everything that she loses by the end. To know it sort of implies that like there's still hope, like there's always a way back, like she can be a complete person.
Yeah, and I think too it's important to keep in mind that in the game, like we said, this happens in the game. This is after we get a whole section or a campaign, I'll say, with Abby. And then we have an entire epilogue section, which is a pretty chunky epilogue, I would say. And that leads to one of the most horrific, conflicting pieces of gameplay I think I've ever played in my life. And like, just like felt like said at the TV, like, I don't want to do this. Like,
yep.
It's amazing that that something can elicit this emotion. Like, I'm just talking about it, I'm tearing up. And like, I don't know. I want that so badly from the show. I want, it's not even that I want it, right? It's that I want other people to experience like that same feeling that I get from the game in the show. And like already it's like, unless they wildly like step it up in a way I didn't expect in season 3, it feels so doomed at this point after watching that scene and being like, oh, feels like the person who made the game wrote this episode and then it's like missed the point. I don't know.
The thing you just said is exactly the way I feel about it. And I think by comparison, the thing I loved about season 1 is it hit so many of the big beats correctly and with the same level of impact that there are people, and I was saying this in the first episode, like there are normal people in my life who now are aware and have experienced the cosmic horror that is watching Joel decide to kill everyone in the hospital. You have to sit through it, and then you get the agonizing scene at the end where you're just forced to sit with what's just happened and watch him lie to Ellie's face. And like that is such an emotional moment that is one of the all-time moments in video games, right? I mean, one of the issue in Level Story that was on The Last of Us, all of us tried to write about the ending in some way or another because you can't not. Like, I was writing about Joel's Watch and I had to write about the fucking ending because you have to write about it because it has such a gravity to it. And while the emotional resonance of part 2 is less for me, like while the longer I've gone on and replayed that game and my feelings have adapted and evolved with where I am, even though like you swore, okay, if we just take out the porch scene, right, the you swore scene in the game itself, if they had replicated that and given us that same level of silence, like I would be happy with that because I'd be like, people can experience that, they can have those same takeaways. And instead we sort of end up with, they mash them together, and Ellie's story is complete here, right? Every loose end is now tied up. There's no outstanding questions. And so part of what I think is going to be a real challenge that this produces is in a potential season 3, it's assuming that that's something they commit to doing, which it seems like they are. You're not going to, you start that section of the story in the game, and the whole time you're waiting for it to cut back to Ellie. And then there's a certain point where you stop thinking about that, and you're so completely consumed by the story that's in front of you that when you do eventually cut back to Ellie, you're suddenly hit with this wash of like, oh no, like what's gonna happen? And then like, and you're like, oh, what happened? Like you start to re-pick up some of the questions that you had about Ellie. But I don't think there is any questions about Ellie that are going to drive through and produce that same feeling. It's part of why Danielle, I was wondering if they were going to do a whole season based on the epilogue, because they've got a lot of legwork here left to do to make coming back to Ellie's perspective something that is interesting, right? Like, it's just solved.
I was gonna say too, if they go with the 7-episode thing, now granted, some of these episodes were in Jackson, so like 3 episodes, leading to Seattle. But I just wonder, like, if we're spending a similar time with Abby in Seattle as we are with Ellie, actually the exact same amount of time. So, like, are they gonna make time for the epilogue, or like you said, will they decide that they want to build on the epilogue and like make it longer? And then what comes of that with the characters, and again, I still think there's a conversation here about television and the act of waiting as an audience for that, and sort of like, for example, like, I know this is a slightly different, but I'll just say, because it's been on my mind, that like I loved the Game of Thrones books. Like, any momentum I had to read that book 6 is like gone now. It's shot. And like, obviously that's a much longer wait, but like, that just happens when you're away from something. Like, it's just natural. And what is the result of this? Season 3, I looked it up, is not set to come out till 2027. Are people that excited to see Abby's perspective? Like,
oh no.
In 2 years, who's going to come back?
Right. Like, I feel like people, I haven't read the discourse on the season, but like, I feel like people hate Abby. Like, why would you want that? Like, that's the whole point of the game, is that it's forcing you into this. You don't have time to wait. You're just there. I don't know.
Well, one thing that I thought about that, when you guys were saying that Ellie's story is fully wrapped up, but one thing that has not been wrapped up at all is they keep the cycle of violence is like a main point, but nobody has solved it. So I would say that still is something that she is maybe if she's still the protagonist, that's like what she's supposed to solve, is this main villain. So if she could end the cycle of violence, then that would be her like arc going forward. Not to discredit everything that you said of them.
No, that you've kind of crystal balled like the whole idea of where the story is trying to go. That is like the key plot point that needs to be resolved still. You're absolutely right.
I did have another contrarian thought, because I have never understood her reaction. Like, she is angry that she was not allowed to be sacrificed for the greater good. And what teenager is that altruistic? Like, she says, you took away meaning from my life. I could have been important. My life could have had meaning if you had let me die. And I'm like, everything that we've seen so far, she's like seemed happy. She's had relationships that it's like, why is she acting like she would have been better off dead? Why is she has this like hero complex, but I don't understand where it came from.
I mean, from my perspective, I always thought that, like, just in the world they're living in, like, Ellie is living an existence that feels very unfulfilling to her. And when she goes out with Joel, like realizing that she's been bit, like, and everything like that just changes her perspective. And it's not so much like, yes, it is a heroic thing, but I think Ellie is like, she's 14, but not the typical 14-year-old. Like, that would, and I don't mean that like on a personal level. I mean that more that like kids who are 14 in this world are forced to grow up a lot faster than like right now, for example. And I think for her, knowing how the world is, like, it's not so much a heroic thing, but more just like, I don't know. I feel like there's more I want to say, and like I'm not sure how to like actually articulate it. Just that it's not so much about heroism as more just that for her, like it means something to her, and perhaps that has to do with Riley, and just not bringing on more death, but wanting to be somebody who can help end this epidemic for the future and be something larger than what she is, I guess.
Which is really ironic because what if she had communicated all of that to Joel and then he had known she had the opportunity ever arisen, she wanted to sacrifice herself for a cure. But because she's as bad at communicating her feelings as Joel is, they never had that conversation, which is the reason
Fair.
that he killed everyone.
Uh-huh.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That is like a thing that gets brought up sometimes, because one of my friend and I go back and forth about this, where she's like, how do you know Ellie wanted to die? Like, you can't just say that. And I'm like, she does give hints, though. Like, she says things, but you're right. She doesn't outright say it, partially because, like, they don't know that she's going to die, obviously, when they're going to the Firefly Hospital. But yeah, she never outright says it, you're right. So that is a good point.
I mean, it is just like also good character writing, because it's like what happens in real life, right? Things don't happen for any particular reason, and then we post-date meaning onto it to try and compartmentalize our lives into like things that cohere and make sense despite everything being governed by like entropy. And so I think one of the key questions that you have with a character like Ellie as the story progresses is how much of this is this thing happened. She can't prove it happened. She finally does prove it happened, and now she has to live with the consequences of having proved that. And then she's going to have to make up her mind about what she is deciding she feels about it. Whether that feeling is produced authentically after the fact or produced over time after the fact, and whether it's something that she wanted beforehand or wanted after, I don't think it makes a material difference to the story, because it's about how she feels now, right? It's it's that kind of thing of like, especially as a teenager, you're always heightened to injustice because your brain doesn't work right. And an injustice on this kind of cosmic scale, to a character like Ellie, I think is combined with the idea that Danielle was touching on, which is that a post-apocalypse, by definition, is a series of heterotopias. And as Foucault says, right, the heterotopia is a crucible for evolution and change. It forces you to contend with new forces new challenges that you otherwise wouldn't in other closed systems. And so if your entire life, right, she's born after the end of the world, if your entire life is a series of heterotopias that are all crucibles for change, you're going to grow up pretty quickly. And you're going to grow wrong pretty quickly as well, right? You're going to be making choices about how you feel about things that are completely pressured by the existential dread of lacking some of the fundamental, aspects of your hierarchy of needs. Like something as simple as like shelter and food might be something that is deeply freighted week to week. And so it's all about acceleration. And by the time that she gets to the place where it seems like she could have meant that people don't have to live like this, that is the thing that would give her life meaning. Whether she had to die for it or not, I think is irrelevant to how she feels about it. Though you do make a good point, Darth.
Well, to maybe either give context to or take back what I said, I realize that there's a lot of scenes in here that that paint the picture that Ellie is obsessed with doing the right thing, quote unquote. So her sacrificing herself would obviously be the right thing. Wanting to let Eugene say goodbye, like she knew the threat. She was like actively going to monitor him to make sure that he wasn't shaking and wasn't turning. Like she wasn't discounting the threat. She was trying to do the right thing. Not wanting to lie to Gale again was about, in her mind, wanting to do the right thing. Wanting to save the Scar, who was going to be killed by the WLF, even though it would put them in extreme danger, because that was the right thing. And I feel like we could come up with a dozen other examples, because she's always like, let's go help them, they need help, blah blah blah. So all of that may be very intentionally pointing to the fact that um that she has that moral complex of wanting to sacrifice herself because it's the right thing, because that's what she, I don't know how you could be raised to want to do the right thing when you're like an orphan in this world, but apparently she was, because that's what all of these examples seem to point to.
I think she sees a lot of corrupt adults around her too. Like, there are like bits and pieces of that, like, hinted at in the game, and perhaps she, in the sort of rebellious teenage way, wants to be better when she gets older, as we talked about earlier. But but yeah, that was sort of my perspective on it.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting as well, like, it's gonna be like, and my ambition is always to be worse than before. The the thing that I think makes this even more challenging to kind of unpack as well is the in having an answer to this relationship, and then another episode that we're going to talk about after a quick break here. In having the answer here, Ellie can't still be in a bloodlust in the next episode when she goes to the aquarium. Like, there's a sort of there's a way that it forces them to compartmentalize her motivation to, and you know, to be fair, she hasn't been in a bloodlust this entire season because they kind of eschew that aspect of, like, you know, it's not like a video. By the time that you get to this point in the video game, you've killed hundreds of people in pretty violent and graphic and brutal ways. And you watch all of it in 4K, 60 frames a second, baby. Let me tell you.
I was waiting
Watch
for
her
Danielle to
slip
go.
ups.
No, I was waiting for her to go, you didn't have to kill them, David. You could just sneak past them. What do you mean you killed them?
It's a skill
I mean,
issue.
if I will say, in the speed run, they run past a lot of battles. I am not one to do that because I like to explore, so you gotta kill the people in the area so you can explore. But
Oh yeah.
that's a video game thing.
The it's so funny to me that they're so confident. We haven't talked about this. They're so confident that people will be interested in season 2 that they've released a version of the game where you can play it in chronological order.
Oh, I hate that. I saw that. Yeah.
Ugh.
I was like, Druckmann, sit down. Come on, brother. Come on. What are you talking about? Insane. I was like, did you guys forget the game that you made? The point of it?
Right.
Anyway, so I will at some point play that and report back, but can't imagine it's good.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll hear what you have to say. I don't think I can bring myself to do it.
No. I'm just thinking, like, the end of... yeah, anyway. The whole game is... The structuring principle is that it's in 2 halves. Anyway. Yes. Okay. Do you guys have anything else on episode 6?
I don't think so.
Good stuff. Let's take a quick break then, and then we'll come back and talk about episode 7. So we'll be right back with you after these messages. This post-apocalypse unit is sponsored by the Maynard Trigg series. You can find these books at underink.press. They are my science fantasy coming-of-age novels. If you like post-apocalypse fiction, I guarantee you'll like these novels. They take place in a dying world far above the earth in the skies. They are fantasy novels, they are mystery novels, they are coming of age. If you enjoy the things we talk about and the way we talk about them, I guarantee you'll like these novels. Use code REVIEW10 at checkout. That's REVIEW10 at checkout for 10% off the original hardback of the first novel. That's this one right here. Once again, REVIEW10 at underink.press to grab your copy of the first Maynard Trigg book today. Welcome back. We are talking about the last episode of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 7, Convergence, directed by Nina Lopez Carrado, written by Neil Druckmann and Haley Gross and Craig Mazin. Because how could this episode be written by any less than 3 people? Okay, here we go. Danielle, when you are ready, could we please hear a summary?
Ellie heads back to the theater, numbed and shocked by her own actions. Dina wants to head home, so Jesse and Ellie go in search of Tommy. They hear gunshots, and Ellie peels off to hunt down Abby at the aquarium. Elsewhere, Isaac frets over Abby's disappearance as the wolves gear up for an all-out assault on the Seraphites. Meanwhile, Ellie's boat capsizes, and she is briefly captured by the Seraphites before escaping. Ellie ambushes Owen and Mel, and in a moment of frantic self-defense, Ellie shoots Owen through the neck, and the bullet hits Mel. As Mel dies, she begs Ellie to perform a C-section to save her baby. Ellie cannot do it. Back at the theater, the gang prepares to head home. Abby ambushes the squad. She shoots Jesse in the head, knocks Tommy down, and holds Ellie at gunpoint. 3 days earlier, Abby is woken by Manny. They have been summoned by Isaac. Seattle, day 1.
Thus, the twist is completed. Man, it's so hard to explain how crazy that, like, when it happens in the game and then you're just playing as Abby, it's crazy. I've, like, to the point where I don't want to like underplay this. This is one of the most contentious, like, things that's happened in Triple. Like, people were pissing and shitting themselves. They were so mad. They were frothing at the mouth. They were furious. They were like, "You killed Joel, and now I have to play as a strong woman?" No, pretty women only. That type of vibe. People were furious.
Yeah, I do remember that very vividly, of like getting to the confrontation scene in the theater with Abby, having shot Jesse and holding Ellie at gunpoint. And then it goes to black, and I'm like, oh, okay, so we're at the confrontation. Let's see what happens. And then we get this flashback with Abby. And again, I won't go too deep into it just because, but I'm playing it and I'm like, all right, so this is a flashback. So, like, it's just a flashback. Like, surely we're going to go back. And then we didn't. And
it keeps going.
I was like, okay, surely it's just like for a little bit, like just a tiny campaign, like nothing big. And then I saw like the Seattle day 1 and I was like, oh, I don't want to play as her for 3 days. Like, that sucks.
20 hours later. Like, it's literally
yeah.
half the game.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess I'll leave it at that. I won't say how I felt later, but yeah, I wasn't mad per se, but I was a little like, I enjoyed playing as Ellie, because also with Abby it changes your toolkit, like, and I liked Ellie's toolkit, so I was like, the fuck, I have to do these things? Like, I don't want to use.
The second I had to craft a shiv again, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yep.
Oh, it's 2012 again. Like, it really had that feeling.
Well, so you have to be with like different characters, and just everything's different, and I didn't like it, and I wasn't happy about it, but not to the point that some people were, where they like rage quit the game. But
it's kind of funny because I was thinking, I would imagine it would have been a huge upgrade because Abby was like this hulking warrior who had trained for years, and Ellie kind of just did it. There is
a bit of that, yeah. Like,
yeah,
there is a little bit of that where like she gets much more like military focused weaponry. That does kind of feel like, yeah, you do feel like you're like juiced up toward the end of that Abby section. So yeah, you're actually right, Darth. There is a little bit of that, but like it's the shock of like, how is this the game? And obviously that's the big trick that the game pulls, right? Is that it makes you play as her, and then by the end of that section, hopefully, if you've read the game correctly, you now have like complete empathy for her perspective, and you're rooting for her, and then suddenly it clicks back into place. You're like, oh wait, I know where this is going, and so that's the push and pull. But as Danielle says, it works because it's immediate. I don't know if in 2 years people are going to give a shit about what'll happen to Abby.
Yeah, it was interesting you mentioned, I don't know if I want to play as her for 3 days, and it's like, harkens back to that. Are people going to come back and watch her for 3 to 5 episodes in 2 years' time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. You go, Darth.
I want to point out something really funny to make you laugh, because I legitimately thought that this was how the second game ended, and there was going to have to be a third game released that was going to follow. I was like, we're not going to be able to talk about season 3 for a long time because I still have to make the game.
I still haven't made it.
When's that coming out?
They're doing that after the new franchise? Okay. Weird one, Druckmann.
But okay.
Man, that's
I don't know how I got the impression, but I thought that this like completely diverted from the game. Like the game ended differently, or maybe just ended like with Ellie dying or something, and then the show was going off on its own, doing its like Game of Thrones thing, differently. So I'm having to completely rewrap my expectations around the fact that all of this is still happening in the same storyline.
Yeah, similar feeling here.
Interesting.
I think I even had a conversation with David in real life, IRL. I was like, so is that the epilogue or what?
Yeah, it's
like,
so
oh,
funny.
no.
It's so funny stuff where I'm like, I don't know if I should be having this conversation with you now or on podcast, but like the
Yeah, literally.
Well, I guess there's a couple things I want to talk about. So, obviously, the big sort of sequence breaking thing that's happening here is, they've decided to go home, but they've got to go fetch Tommy because he's still out there doing something. And the sort of plan is they're going to go retrieve him. Jesse is very insistent this is the plan. He's getting a little pissed with her initially anyway. Like she's kind of acting like a bit like a brat. And he's sort of obviously figured out there's something between Ellie and Dina. And they get to the point where Ellie sees the aquarium. They hear gunshots. And he's like, like we got to go like save Tommy. She's like, no, we got to fucking kill Abby. Like while we have the chance, like this will be our last chance. And they, they kind of diverge and they go their separate ways. And I can't remember if this is in the game or not, Danielle. But the little moment where Ellie's boat capsizes and she gets captured by the Seraphites. My note here my note here reads, if they did this in the game and I've forgotten about it, I should be more pissed off than I am. Because it's bizarre.
So here's what goes down in the game. In the game, her boat does capsize, but it's close enough to the aquarium that she's able to swim there. And that's a whole thing where you kind of have to dive underwater to avoid the waves. Otherwise, you just get pushed around. The Seraphite scene, I guess I was sort of hesitant to say, but I feel like if it just happened here, then it's okay for me to spoil it. But that's an Abby scene.
Yeah,
that's straight up. That was that was like the trailer.
It's the trailer scene,
actually. Yeah, like I watched it and I was like, "What is my note?" Yeah, my note is, "Wait a minute. Ellie is taking Abby's scene? What the actual fuck? Why? How is that necessary?"
Because this is so hard to talk about. Isn't that the scene where she meets?
Yes.
What the fuck?
So, I know, like, why is that there?
That's
like,
so
I guess
funny.
they want to build up the Seraphite threat, but like, you're gonna do that anyway in season 3. You're fine.
That's the whole point of that story. That's so funny. It's really funny as well because it lasts like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And she just escapes on another boat.
I literally walked away to get food, and because I was like, she's in the water, like I know what happens, and then I'm like, wait, how did we get here? Why is this happening?
It's so funny. I don't know what they were thinking, man. It's obviously set against the backdrop of Isaac launching his assault on the Seraphite Island. Now, the eagle-eyed viewer might notice some parallels with Gaza City, potentially. Just some, though. Not literally everything. It does really feel like Druckmann was like, no. We can't change anything. This has to be the exact metaphor it is. Very curious to see how Mazin grapples with that in the rest of the story. to come. But yeah, this whole episode to me feels like that the story happens in such a way in the game, so they have to put all the parts together, and it feels like a series of building blocks that are sitting next to each other that aren't quite finding ways to connect. And I was left feeling very like, and we'll talk about the aquarium and like how that plays out, but just this sequence of them getting there, it felt very awkward and kind of clumsy. As much as like it's like, again, the production and the set design is incredible. Like, this is the first time this show has looked as good as Station 11, Darth, would you say? Like, as completely coherent of a setting. That's something you agree with?
I mean, it's had moments since the beginning where it's always had beautiful cinematography. So, sure.
Wow. Okay, fine.
You wanted me to say yes. I
Thank you. See, this is why Pat is on the show, because Pat always agrees with me. So someone's got to do it in his absence. But yeah, look. I guess what I'm trying to drive at here is like, did you guys come away with the same feeling of this being just kind of not tacked on, but like, it just feels like an awkward sequence that doesn't quite fit together to me. There's a lack of scale and difficulty and friction here that just makes it feel like they move through these spaces. The boat I don't know. It all just feels a bit. Yeah, but I'm struggling to put my finger on it.
It just feels fast to me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Darth.
I was gonna say inconsequential, I feel like is the best word. Because looking at like a breakdown of all of the different scenes and like what really comes out of any of them, like when Ellie gets to the aquarium and accidentally kills the people and she's horrified, but it doesn't change Ellie at all. She still keeps her same stubborn mentality. When she's captured by the scars and almost dies, it doesn't change anything about her at all. The story continues to move forward, and yeah, like all of these, like what, none of them change anything. So maybe that's why it feels like this it's meandering and doesn't have purpose, is because nothing is propelling you forward. It's all just set pieces that they're just moving you through just because they have to have somewhere to put the character for this 2-minute shot.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to get at. Yeah, it feels like, well, the scene has to happen somewhere. Here we go. You know, like, yeah, it's very I mean, like, with the notable exception of the entry to the aquarium, like after the silly diversion with the Seraphites, the entry to the aquarium has the same feeling of like it does feel really freighted and tense. And they let you have a bit of silence for the first time ever in this season, where they're like, okay, just sit with this for a moment, that this is really creepy and kind of scary, and like that she's finding evidence that they hear and she's working up to it, and then, you know, you get to the reveal. That's really effective for me, but it's the only thing that's effective aside from the violence at the very end of the episode. Yeah, I don't know, Alex, you're kind of fresh to this material. Does where do you find yourself as the aquarium kind of comes together? Like, is this stuff working, or are you in a similar position where it's just kind of like whatever, kind of blah?
Yeah, it's that kind of like we sort of talked about it before. It's like just like the mechanistics of revenge. I was just like, I think I had in my notes, is like, is this really a revenge arc? Like, does it still surprise me? Does it hurt me like it should? Not really. Like, I don't know. It just, yeah, that's kind of where I am with it. Like, I didn't mind, like, yeah. Honestly, the Seraphite thing was kind of weird in a way. I don't know if it was even needed. And then yeah, it's just again just echoes that whole theme of like Whiplash. I feel like I could have got like 3 episodes instead of all of that in one. But yeah, I'm not sure what to think about it really.
I think it's partially blunted too because Ellie has already decided that she's going to go back by the time that she leaves with Jesse. So instead of the way that it should be framed, which is she's still hellbent on this bloody conquest, and this is just another opportunity for her to exact that revenge, she seems largely to have resolved it until, again, a moment of opportunity presents itself. And it's like, well, if it's all just opportunistic, then she wasn't really on a revenge quest, was she? You know? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really
Crimes
tough.
of happenstance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all a bit too coincidental instead of feeling like it's motivated. Like, you know, and the fact that she knows it's the aquarium is like, that's fine. Like, I'm not the person that's like cinema sinsing the fact that she figures out that it's the aquarium, but it's the tonality of that argument with Jesse where it feels like they put the argument in because they're like, well, we know that they have to argue about it.
Right.
It has a bit of that quality to it. It feels like they're doing this because they have to move through to get to the ending.
Well, it's just one of those mechanisms where it's like it could have just been premeditated, but they have to make it feel like it's not quite as bad as it could have been.
Yeah, right. She can't be an actual murderer. It has
No,
to be,
there has to be something that pushes her over the edge. She can't have like actually spent time thinking about this beforehand. You know?
Yeah, she's doing manslaughter too, you know, that type of thing. It's
Yeah,
like,
basically.
okay, but murder 1 is sort of the point of the story. Like, I don't know how we got here.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say that's the whole like this scene plays out largely almost not identical to the game, but like pretty similar, like where Jesse and Ellie part ways. It's just more that like Ellie still has that revenge, but like they're going to find Tommy, and I think she's almost talked down, and then it just rises back up when she sees an opportunity. Like she sees the Ferris wheel, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going for that." It just hits a slightly harder. Well, it hits harder in that versus here, where she almost feels like regretful of her actions and wants to stop. And partially that's because she has a conversation, I think it's at the start of the episode with Dina, right? That's at the start? Like where she tells Dina what Joel did at the hospital. And I don't really know what to make of that scene. Like in general, I'm not the biggest fan of it because sometimes I think people like hold things close to themselves. Like that's such like a weird unspoken thing between Joel and Ellie. Like she never talks about it. But like I think my feeling on that like doesn't necessarily make it bad. It's just I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't know how to take it.
Well, the note that I had from the summary was that it was that conversation which led Dina to changing her mind and wanting to return to Jackson. So
right.
Dina was fully on board with the revenge, but because of that conversation, now she's like, okay, let's go home.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. That's right.
I don't know. This to me just is like yet another moment of this TV show explaining something that happened previously. That's kind of how it, like, it's a good scene, and like I like the acting and I like the way that it's written, but like it really does feel like yet another moment where they don't trust you to remember what the show is.
Yeah.
And what happened.
I don't think it needed to be said at all because Dina's the smart one. Like she already figured it out.
That's always my understanding of the game. She puts it all together herself. Yeah.
It feels in a strange way. The best way I can sum up my thoughts is that it feels montagey, even though there's no real montages in it. It just feels like I forget if I said this on on previous episodes, but like sometimes I'll go to watch a movie and I feel like almost like, oh wow, I'm just watching a series of scenes. Like I'm sitting here, like I can't suspend my disbelief like in the beginning. And then like the movie goes on and I'm able to sort of get into it and not think about the fact that I'm just watching a bunch of scenes put together to make a piece of art. And while I was watching this episode, that's what I felt like. It's just I couldn't suspend my disbelief the entire time. Just felt like a bunch of scenes were happening and and yeah, and I never really felt like it grabbed me the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking about this during the edit when you had said that last time, and I was like, is there a film that from the first second you're just like in it? And I was like, I know the two I had were Michael Clayton. That the second that film starts, you just like bam, you're in it with that voicemail. And then the Batman. I was like, those are two films where like from the set you just get thrown underwater straight away. Like
You just like your epic narrations.
I love a good monologue, man. I don't know what to tell you.
See, I was gonna say The Dark Knight, I feel like, or I just watched for the first time The Shawshank Redemption. I feel like that had me pretty
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah. The Dark Knight is with that opening heist is like so good and like electric.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn,
God,
man.
I love that movie.
Who would have guessed that Batman films can be good? Someone should have.
be
Someone should have
good.
told Snyder that. Maybe he didn't know.
Yeah, some of those for me would have been like Dunkirk, The Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
The Matrix, I remember when you're in that, you're just thrown in with Trinity on that
Oh yeah, that
mid-chase.
opening action. Yeah,
Um,
that is sick.
You know nothing about this world, and you just get a motorcycle chase, and then she like vaporizes when she picks up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And that
It
was
just throws you into
jaw-dropping effects. Like
Yeah.
for that time in the 90s, that blew everyone away.
Yeah. Damn. Well.
Yeah.
Last of Us does not quite get there, which is weird because the first season has a lot of that, where it's like it just grabs you at the start of an episode, and it's like, all right, stick with me, pal. Like we're just doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I will say for the record that I do think that part of my interpretation of this is just because I am just so hell-bent on like thinking about the games. Like, so it's hard for me to sort of be immersed in that. And I'll own up to that. If somebody's coming to this and not thinking about the games, they might not view it the same way. But
yeah, and I think I'm probably somewhere like in the middle of the spectrum of I like the game more than I liked it when I first played it, but I'm still not like a person that defends this game. I still think like fundamentally I find a lot of what this story does completely insufficient, even though I think Ellie's story is something that resonates with me every time. I think in particular as I've already alluded to, and if God forbid they do make a season 3, that would be the place to talk about it. Would be obviously the politics and the way that it redresses Gaza and all of that stuff in a way that I find completely freighted and just like very insufficient. But we talked about that at length, which is like this problem this story has of like conceiving of violence as like individual instead of like socially located and institutionalized. But that's a whole other. And then you can talk about Zionism and stuff, and there's some really good essays and articles out there where people are thinking through the kind of Zionism of the way this story ends up presenting the good people on both sides thing. That being said, I want to talk about the killing because I have a Darth question, gun related. So Ellie, she's got them at gunpoint, and she's telling them to, she's like, "Where's Abby? Where's Abby?" Blah blah, and they don't want to tell her. Owen goes for a gun, and as he's doing this, she discharges her weapon. It goes through Owen's throat and then hits Mel with enough velocity to kill her. My question, Darth, is that possible? Like, I don't know enough about guns. Like, is that like a thing?
I might be making this up. I want to say it was a Magnum that she was holding.
It's Joel's
look at it
big,
again.
chunky
But-
revolver, yeah.
But yeah, point being that like it just went through their necks, which is like cartilage. There's nothing major in there, and I'm pretty sure that it would have straight gone through like ribs and everything and killed her, but that would have been a way more gruesome and everything. So the neck was better to show. So yeah, they answered I think like a much smaller caliber also probably would have killed both of them if it went through the neck. So the bigger handgun definitely, even though I'm not nearly the gun fanatic that my other friends are, having done a lot of shooting when I was younger. Those bigger handguns, they have so much kick to them, and I'm kind of imagining they probably really toned down the amount of damage that it would have done.
Yeah, in the game, that gun is like blowing people's skulls in and shit. Like, when you doing headshots in that game feels nasty. Like, yeah. Okay, no, I was just curious, because it was one of those, like, choreography things where I was like, oh, that... I can't tell if that makes sense or not, but it's certainly for dramatic effect is really compelling. Now...
I had the exact opposite thought.
Oh, did you?
I was like, that's what would have happened. I was like, that's why you don't stand behind people.
Oh my
Soldiers
God.
spread out. You don't go in lines.
Want to get those Halo 3 like triple kills with the sniper rifle?
Yes.
Yeah. You wait, because you know you get your angles anyway.
Did she even I was just gonna say, did she even flinch when she fired the shot? Like, was there any recoil?
Yeah, there is. She almost like falls, like steps backwards as it happens.
Yeah, that just tells you how well I remember it then.
Yeah.
Um,
It is a pretty good bit of choreography where she like, because as Owen goes for the gun, she panics, shoots, and it does knock her back some from memory. But yeah, and then we get Mel isn't dead. Mel is dying. So okay, the way that this, and again, I don't want to be the person that's just comparing them, but when we talked before about silence versus like showing, don't telling, right? In the game, the way that this plays out is Ellie pulls the trigger, they die. Is it the same where she shoots one of them and it kills them both, Danielle? I feel like she kills Owen first
No.
and then Mel, right?
Yeah, I think Owen does try to attack her. I think she stabs him, and then she stabs Mel.
That might be right.
And then yeah.
Yeah, because I remember it was deliberate both times in the game. Again, blunting the violence, stepping back from the line. It's just what the show is doing. And it's when Ellie goes for, I think it's like a map or a radio or walkie-talkie or something. She goes to get something off of Mel's body. And that's where you get the reveal that she's pregnant. Instead of what this show does, which is it's like, just in case you weren't paying attention, Mel is not dead, and she's like, "Oh, please, like you have to perform a C-section and save my baby," and like, it is harrowing, but also completely unnecessary.
I'll fight you there, because, and I mean, maybe this is not what they were thinking, but I think this has to be an intentional callback to how Ellie was born.
That's true. I hate
No,
it
she
even
wasn't
more.
C-sectioned.
She
wasn't
wasn't, but-
C-section though. She was already.
Yeah.
Okay, that ruins my thought then.
Well, no, I don't think you're wrong. I was sort of silent because I didn't think about that at all.
Yeah, neither.
And now I'm like, oh, maybe it was. I don't know.
Even if it is that anything? This is my problem. Is it's like, if it is, I'm not sure it does anything.
No, I don't want to make it seem like I'm defending the scene, because I think it should be rewritten, and my rewrite is really dark.
Uh-oh.
And
I'm kinda curious.
I want to just make the disclaimer that as we have said multiple times in previous podcasts, we do not advocate for the killing of children. Just want to make that absolutely
kid
clear.
in The Mandalorian, except for that one kid in The Mandalorian, that motherfucker can go.
So much of the problem is like everything being wishy-washy with this episode, and it's not propelling, and they're not willing to let any of the characters sit in like in quote unquote evil, especially Ellie. They always have to keep like bringing her back towards she's not like a full bad person. So I'm like she killed, I don't remember the other girl's name, who she took down in the tunnels and tortured her until she gave up the wheel name. But there was like no mercy, right? She was like, I'm going to beat you and torture you until you tell me this, and then I'm going to leave you here to die, right? I think she should have kept that mentality, and she should have threatened Mel and put the knife on her stomach and said, I'm going to stab your baby if you don't tell me where Abby is. Because that's how far gone she is.
Yeah, it's not consistent with the character building we've had leading up to it. Yeah, totally get that.
It's so funny you say that because there's a really famous line that Danielle, you know what I'm talking about, which is like, you know, she's pregnant. Good. It could have been a similar moment. You know, I could see them playing with that a little bit. I could see them really doing. I could. That would be such a good addition to really spin that into, because like it is shocking when it happens. Like when that first happens and you realize that she's pregnant. It's a real moment of like, oh my god, what have we become? Like, what are we doing? And it's that moment which is where Ellie decides she's going to go home, right? Because she has finally found the line and she's crossed the line, and now it's like, okay, I'm done. Like this is over. And what I really think,
I was just gonna say it's like it's only like evolutionarily worse than her killing the guy 0.1 seconds before she killed the woman. You know, killing the woman with the baby is not inherently worse than killing the man. We've just developed that mindset because that's our evolutionary drive to try to save the youth as much as we can, right?
oh yeah, I agree with that. Like I'm, you know, fortunately for us, there are some really clear lines in the sand of like when someone is alive and when they aren't. So like, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, but it is like it's shocking for that reason because it plays on that socialization.
Well, I'm thinking too about just Dina as well, pregnant.
And one way that this would have played even better is you've got both Tommy and Jesse and then Dina off on the side, but all of them have come out trying to save both of them, but mostly to save Ellie, to get her to stop this and to bring her back home. Now if they come up and find her, she's not sitting there crying because she accidentally shot someone. Now they come up and find her as she's shoving a knife into a pregnant woman's stomach. This completely flips their relationship, right? Now Ellie's like no longer this like tortured victim at the end of this episode. It's completely the opposite, and now her uncle is like, I'm leaving you, you're dead to me. Like this could have been a really interesting last episode if they had gone dark with it.
Yep. Again though, they're so afraid to do the thing. They're so afraid to commit and like the game is fundamentally a bold story told boldly, right? It is, you know, I don't think many writers get swings like this in their careers where they come up with an idea like this and then get to execute on the swing to the extent that Druckmann did. But like, it's a bold story. It is like challenging, and this version of the story is completely unwilling to engage with those bold aspects.
How does Ellie react in the game, you as the player, to the revelation of the pregnancy?
She's pretty horrified.
Yeah.
Like she yeah, like David
So
said, she's
it's
looking for a
consistent
map.
with the game then, is what we're saying. It just
in
doesn't
that
come across
way.
well.
Yeah, like yeah, the killing Mel and Owen is more direct instead of like her accidentally pulling a trigger.
Yeah.
Or yeah, and she's horrified, and then of course that's when Tommy and Jesse find her.
So it hits different, is what we're saying.
Yeah, because she's done it. It's a choice that she made. And that's what I mean by
Yeah.
boldness
Yeah.
is like, and it's not a moment, and this is, I think, really keen. It's not a moment where it's, press square to kill Mel. It plays out as a cutscene. I think there's a worse game would have made you do this. But instead, by not having it be a quick time event, it forces you to absorb what's happening.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to be bold in this way and not have Ellie commit this violence on purpose. The thing that's shocking to her is that violence happened, not that she's the one that did the violence. If you know, like it changes and to Darth's point, she becomes a victim in this story instead of the perpetrator, right? Which means that if you're then going to switch perspectives and show us someone who she views as the perpetrator from their perspective, well, but if Ellie wasn't the perpetrator in her own narrative, then what are we doing? Like, I just think it loses sight of the story that it is, and fails to neither be bold nor challenging, and instead, and we can talk about the final scene in the theater, but I think that the aquarium scene, if you were already on the fence about this show, this has to be one of those moments where, like, as a viewer, you're like, is this still good? Because, like, I know a lot of people fell off the show after episode 4. Like, there's the numbers are not good for The Last of Us season 2. Let's just say that. But this to me really feels like it would seal the deal if you were just a regular TV viewer. I don't know. And then especially with the ending where it swaps and you don't have the immediacy, I'm just not sure what you're coming back for at this point.
Yeah. I agree. It feels like as much as I love like them being faithful to the game, in this case, it's a little too faithful, like in the sense where like it needed to do something different because now we're left with a character that we most likely, if we're coming from the show, like don't like a lot because they killed a character who was beloved. And also pacing issues as well. Just like it's I can't wrap my head around it. It's just so odd to me. Because this was my worst case scenario thought for this show. And I really thought, no, like the writers are smarter than that. They won't do that. So that's why it's like just difficult for me to even like put into words like just why I think it's bad. I don't know. Just feel like I'm saying I don't know a lot because I'm just so kind of surprised by it all.
I had kind of wondered if they were going to be branching out like The Walking Dead did and some other shows where you just have like different shows set in the same world. And I was like, okay, well, because the episode ends with Abby pointing the gun and you hear a bang, but then it cuts to black. And I'm like, that was probably a fake out. Ellie's probably alive, but also they could have just killed her. And now this is going to be a completely new story. It's Abby's perspective. It's WLF, and it's nothing connected to anything that we've known before, right? And that's going to be season 3. And then season 4 could be someone in Paris, and it's them, living through the whole thing. Like, I ended it thinking maybe that's the way it's going.
Mm-hmm. It would be so much. It would be a better TV show.
I was gonna say what you're saying is like actually kind of interesting. Like,
yeah,
that'd be cool.
The problem, I think, and the thing that Danielle is trying to talk to is, so okay. The way that this episode ends is we go back to the theater and the gang is getting ready to sort of wrap everything up and head home. Jesse and Ellie make good because they have the conversation about Dina and she's like, are we cool? And he's like, yeah, like that's fine. A bit of light ribbing between pals. We hear a gunshot, they rush out, and bang, Jesse gets popped in the head straight away, which I was like, yes, they kept that. Tommy doesn't...
You're so cruel.
No, it's such a
he
gets
shocking popped in the head straight away. I was like, yes.
It's such a shocking moment, and I'm glad that they went for it because this show is filled
Me
with
too,
them
yeah.
not going for it, and they're like, they just bang, he's dead. They don't shoot Tommy, which is interesting. He just gets knocked down, so I'm wondering if they'll plug him in the head later as well.
Mhm.
But the thing that is fascinating is, like Darth said, Abby has the gun, and we get the the iconic line, which is, "You killed my friends. We let you live, and you wasted it." And again, I'll play, like I did in the last edit, I'll play the show and the game audio, and you tell me it sounds identical to me. It's so cool.
I know why you killed Joel. He did what he did to save me. I'm the one that you want. Just let him go. I let you live. I let you live. And you wasted it. Oh, no! You killed my friends. We let you both live. And you wasted it.
Such good voice tones.
I was gonna say Caitlin Denver. So I didn't. First 2 episodes with her as Abby, she came off as sort of incompetent in some regards, and in this episode, I was like, oh, I'm bought into it. Like, as Abby. I mean, she, like, that little scene that she got. My notes are Caitlin Denver. Holy shit, incredible. Like, I'm on board to see her interpretation of Abby now.
So
having
cool.
seen that was great.
The physical presence and how quickly she dispatches, like, everyone. I was like, God damn! Like, they sink the shot on her completely. I was very impressed.
Yes, I'm excited to see. I'm sad they didn't film the seasons back to back, because they easily could. Well, not easily, but they could have. Because I want to see her interpretation of Abby now. Like, I'm so curious. That's my hook, personally. Like,
it's funny because I feel the same way, but I'm like, they're gonna fuck it up. Like, all the evidence here suggests that they'll completely fuck it up, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, like, the first season's really good, and so they know how to do the story.
Expect the worst and hope for the best, right?
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, so the situation we find ourselves in is Ellie's at gunpoint, Jesse's dead, Tommy's on the ground, and then we cut to black. And instead of just ending the episode there, we get the Abby waking up, and we get the Seattle day one as she kind of walks out to the stadium. And yeah, then it ends, and that's the season. Yeah. So gonna wait 2 years to see what happens next. But I'm with Danielle. I'm definitely checking back in just to see this interpretation of Abby, because yeah, I'm also thrilled to see what decisions they make that I disagree with. But yeah.
I was gonna say, we're gonna be back here for season 3. Like,
we're never gonna stop talking about The Last of Us.
no. And then the eventual season 4, potentially.
Oh,
I hope not, but
Are
we'll
they
see.
actually doing 4 or just
I
3?
don't know.
They don't know yet.
Great.
When I looked up to see when the 3rd season was coming out, I think it was Craig Mazin was like unsure if they were going to do a 4 or not.
Right.
If they were gonna do 4, it would need to be like 3 one-shot episodes or something. I don't know how you, like, it would have to be, I don't know what you do with that.
Yeah. I was gonna say that the epilogue is weird because, like, it's a lot of it is long because of the combat, and most of what they do in the adaptation is remove the combat section. So if you're removing that, you have 2 episodes at most, I would say.
People also hate the epilogue, is worth saying. I know that, like, the way that we feel about the game is complicated, but generally, critically, the epilogue is reviewed or received as the worst part of the game by most critics, is the other thing to say. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
maybe
that's
they'll
fair.
just get rid of it entirely and we'll get the resolution jammed up against some other important scene like we did at the end of the previous episode.
Oh God, I don't think I can take it.
Yeah.
Like
The psychic damage alone.
Like, make it stop.
Yeah.
We had kind of, I mean, we talked around, but the battle between Isaac's troops who go off on the boats and then they land somewhere and head off into the woods and attack the Seraphites, like, hometown or whatever. And there are so many, like, huge fireball explosions that my immediate reaction was like, okay, the bow and arrow people are dead. Like, no question, dead, dead, dead. And I'm getting the impression that that's not the case, but also wondering if they should have done something else now to address that. Because it either, like, they are dead, 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 and we're not coming back to it, or there's gonna have to be a flashback, or you know what I'm saying? It feels.
Well, like, I guess, first of all, like, what they're trying to do, they're trying to genocide these people. So that's what you're picking up on. It's like they're trying to wipe them off the face of the planet. Secondly, you gotta remember, Abby's story, flashback Seattle day one, it's in the past. The Seattle day one for Abby is the same time that Seattle day one for Ellie happened. So it's 3 days ago from that moment.
And I think it's also important, and I know we've kind of touched on this, but as a reminder that the Seraphites are not even mentioned by name, except I think David mentioned once or twice in, like, reading material. They are called Scars in Ellie's section. And the whole, like, thing between them and Wolf is, like, not expanded on at all. It's just something that's happening. Correct me if I'm wrong, David, but I don't even know if we know that Wolf is attacking the Seraphites. Yeah, it's just not a thing. You never, because Ellie just doesn't come in contact with that side of things. So I guess they're trying to do some setup for season 3 with all of this.
So I guess the awkward question I was asking is that season 1 does not require season 2 for season 1 to, like, be fully explained, but season 2 needs 3 for everything to be explained.
Correct. Yeah.
And potentially 4.
Oh God. Well, which is sort of by design, right? It's a story that is fundamentally built by two halves of one whole. So, like, I agree with that, but also I think that it is a sort of if you were to think of this in the context of, like, the way that we talk about novels and stuff like that, like, they're like twin novels where it's like these are two halves of one complete thing, and they don't really fully work without the other. But certainly more so in the show than in the game, I would say.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing to me about the Scars was, while I don't remember where, but while they're walking through the city, they see another mural up on the building, and Ellie is like, "Oh, that's a different one," or something like that. And it's like a mural of a different goddess than the first mural that we saw. And it's like they're building a story, and they're hinting at it, but they're not really building it, and I don't know what it is, but they keep doing it. So I'm like, this has got to be important.
You'd think so. Could just be an unforced error, because that is something this show does.
I'm still running with, like, Ellie's gonna be the goddess. I'm still running with that. That's my theory. She's gonna come back alive from the gunshot, and she's gonna take over the Seraphites.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be amazing, actually.
Sure.
It would be the funniest thing.
Uh-huh.
At this point, like, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, why not? God.
Yeah.
He's the Moab of this story. Oh my god. Okay, yeah. Look.
Yeah.
I guess to kind of wrap up our thoughts here, it's very cool to see a lot of this stuff rendered in such resolution and with such a budget, and I want to, like, sort of underplay that. However, this is like a bad season of TV. It's bad writing choices with the story that they have to contend with. And I think that the longer that they go on, the more they're going to have to try and do something to repair this. And I don't know what that looks like. That's kind of where I land, is like, I'm going to watch season 3 because I'm cursed to keep consuming The Last of Us till I die. But yeah, I think this is just like fundamentally bad television. And I can't tell why and how that's happened, but I'm curious to see what Mazin does going out on his own in season 3 without the influence of Druckmann, and potentially Gross as well. That might change things, it might not.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where things go, and I don't feel optimistic, but well, kind of like Alex said, like hope for the best, expect the worst, you know, like.
And you can never be disappointed.
Yeah, like it I also like think that something I should address like on a personal level is that, and David, you sort of hinted at this as well, but just talking about how it's weird to think about this show in terms of like, or not the show, sorry, like this story being consumed by so many people, and like just talking with people you work with about Ellie and Joel. And for me, it's frustrating because you know, I love these games so much and I want people to experience the story, and it almost feels like a, which I guess a lot of people feel this, but like almost like a territorial thing where I'm like, don't ruin my baby. Like, please don't do this. And
yeah, you want them to do justice by the story, like.
Yeah, like, and I had a feeling part 2 would be difficult to adapt. Like, it's a difficult story to adapt, and I will not deny that. And could I have been in the writer's room and done better? You know, I don't know. But I'm just coming to the end of this season and like looking towards season 3. I just feel a little sad that like this is what people got, because even like I talked to a friend about this show, and I said to her, I was like, wait, so did you watch season 3 and or season 2? And she's like, I think I did. I think. And she had to like think about it.
That's
like,
tough.
Yeah.
like, did it not like really not stick with you? Because this game stuck with me for better or worse. And I hate being that person who's like just saying, oh, well, the book was better or the game was better. But like, that's kind of where I'm landing. And I would just tell people, if you have a PS4, like, play the game, play it on easy. Like, if you need to, like if the combat's, because, you know, I sometimes struggle with the combat in these games. Like, it is worth playing if you're ready to go to some dark places, of course, because God knows it's much darker than the season leads you to believe.
Yeah, I guess by comparison, the thing I think about is, so when we talked about Station 11, that's a fantastic novel, and the TV adaptation is also fantastic, but they are different in like really meaningful, big ways, but they're also not different. Like, and one of the great joys of that TV adaptation to me is exactly what you were sort of alluding to, Danielle, which is I can point people to the TV show and they will get a similar feeling as when you read the book. Like, they'll understand what makes the book special, even if they're different, and that, you know, they tell slightly different stories and they're doing slightly different things. It has the fundamental spirit of the thing is alive and well within the TV adaptation. The fundamental spirit of The Last of Us Part 2 is sort of not really here. Like, all the aesthetics are here and it looks right and it sounds right, and like sometimes it sounds eerily right. But it just isn't. It's, yeah, that those big hits don't. It just, yeah, it feels slightly off. Which sucks because, like, but yeah, to your point, definitely play the game if you haven't and you're interested. If you're The Last of Us curious, definitely give it a go. Yeah, they're really fantastic. Like, there's a reason why we keep talking about them and why everyone on the internet keeps writing and talking about them. Like, they are critically interesting to engage with because there's so much going on, and because they are so imperfect in really curious ways as stories. Yeah. But, Darth, any closing thoughts from you?
I will not defend the show as hard as I would like to, because it does have lots of issues, and I know that I'm giving it a big pass because it is post-apocalyptic, and I love the cinematography that they did with all of the vines growing up and reclaiming buildings. Like, I was just looking at a reclaiming nature reclaiming subreddit just because that, like, I love that imagery of trees growing in over cars and all this kind of stuff. So like all of that was so much up my alley. I was just vibing with the show regardless. And then I'm also a big zombie fan, so add in that factor. Even though there was little of that in this season, but so it definitely got a lot of passes from me. Just for me vibing with it so heavily, and as is the case, talking with David, I'll blame him instead of the rest of you. But after discussing with David, I'm definitely not as happy as I once was, because he drags me back down to earth a little bit.
I can ruin anything. It's my superpower. Yeah. Look, if you like this kind of thing, definitely read After London. That's where all of this kind of comes from. There's that great first half where it's like an ecological study of like what would happen in London if all the people went away, and then the second half is like a post-apocalypse story. It's like the seminal work on post-apocalypse. Alex, closing thoughts.
I loved the sets, and I'll remember the spaces of it, like the flooded Ferris wheel and the sleepy light coming out of Jackson. But I feel like the rest of it, excuse me, kind of just gets tired of itself. I don't know. I've been trying to think about how to talk about it, and it's like, yeah, I guess just that meaning has to be lived in and earned. You can't just announce it every time it happens, I think. And it kind of comes back to what Danielle was saying before, like, am I going to remember much of what happened? Probably not, which is probably completely different to how people remember the game. So,
Or even season 1, like,
yeah, and that's the
those
thing. I
episodes
remember
are so
season 1
solid.
being quite enjoyable. Feels like two different shows almost.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think that's probably a good place to end. Danielle, pluggables. Where can people find you on the internet?
So you can find me over on Blue Sky. My handle is levelstory. Whatever the default Blue Sky thing is, BSKY. And yeah, I would say that's just the main place you can find me, or youtube.com/c/levelstory. And yeah, just working on lots of random projects. Let's plays, hopefully we'll get back to eventually, and other random stuff on the internet. So if you're interested, yeah, give me a follow.
Love it. And Darth, of course, finally, you've got something to plug. Would you like to tell the people what you've been up to for the last, what is it now, 3 months?
Yeah. The video is only 5 hours long, and it started off as a look at how in Star Wars democracy was taken over by the Sith and Palpatine, and the rise of the Empire, and then comparing that kind of beat by beat to how the same thing is happening in American democracy. So that was a extremely in-depth research project that was way more in depth than I had anticipated when I started. I had like 200 hours just in the research and writing phase, and I haven't even tried to factor in how much time I spent editing. So I need something short and happy to edit on, to work on for the next video.
Yes, I think we all need that. I feel like between the proofing and our group chats, it's been a pretty dismal 2 months of dealing with this material. But
yeah,
it is entertaining and informative.
The next one is just like lightsabers go.
But yes, it is a really an incredibly well put together video. It's an excellent resource if you are in a position where it is starting to feel like the acceleration of fascism in America is becoming so quick that it's almost invisible. It's a really good roadmap to understanding what happened, how we got here, and where we need to be fighting on the front lines, and where we need to be focusing our attention. So definitely go check that out. It is an excellent resource and a good video, and I'm glad that it's finally out. You can find links to all that in the show notes. You can buy our merch at underink.press, as well as my books. And if you'd like to support us, you can head to patreon.com/zeroindent. Supporting us at the $5 tier unlocks the bonus episodes of this show, where we watch and talk about supplementary materials. The next Patreon bonus we have coming up is me and Patrick talking about Hollow Knight and Dark Souls, kind of. And free Patreon subscribers gain access to the Zero Indent Patreon chat, where you can send us questions and ideas for future episodes directly and help contribute to the conversation. Any support you give us helps us keep making thoughtful, independent media criticism, an important thing to preserve in an age where context is defined by algorithms. We appreciate all of our Patreon subscribers who help us continue to make the shows and articles that shape Zero Indent. Next episode, we are back to our regularly scheduled programming. Patrick will return from leave, and we will be reading through and talking about the first half of Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel, continuing our St. John Mandel mini unit. We are reading through chapter 5, which is to the end of part 1. In my EPUB, this stops around page 141, but through chapter 5, which is Olivia, stopping on page 141 in the EPUB. All of that is down in the show notes. Danielle, Alex, thank you for joining us and backfilling Patrick while he's been enjoying his time off with his feet up. We'll definitely have you guys back on soon. I know we've got some Patreon ideas that I definitely want to get Danielle involved in. But yeah, we appreciate you guys jumping in and taking the time to work through this unfortunately not great season of TV, as it were.
Well, thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Love it. Well, I think that's it. So it is time for the thing, which I definitely didn't forget to write down in my notes. As always, it's just the end of the show. It's not the end of the world. Zero Indent is an independent publication dedicated to studying works of genre fiction, brought to you by our subscribers. Head to patreon.com/zeroindent to learn more and consider supporting us. Our theme song is The Swan by Alon Peretz. Our podcast cover art is by Crystal Hatay. Everything else is written, directed, and edited by me, DC McNeil. You can find our merch and books at underink.press and everything we do at zeroindent.com.